Chapter 4779. But in fact, his actual combat power was the strongest among the three. There was no doubt about that. Even the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock could not compare to him and could only admit defeat. This was because the bloodline of the blood-devouring lion came from the blood-ferocious lion. Slaughter the blood-ferocious lion was the same as the blood-sea devil dragon and the Kuanpeng. It was a powerful primordial supreme, and its combat power was extraordinary. It was in existence on the same level as the void tortoise, the golden divine dragon, and the primordial yiksha. No, like the blood-sea devil dragon and the Kuanpeng, the blood-ferocious lion had disappeared before the end of the primordial war. No one knew whether it was dead or alive. Until now, no one knew whether it was dead or alive. But the blood-ferocious lion's 9 changes of the berserk lion was continued by its direct descendant, the blood-devouring lion. After countless years of reproduction, the battle lion clan of the second universe was born. Not long ago, the blood dragon clan and the azure sky rock clan's first-generation ancestors, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, had successfully broken through to the primordial supreme realm. They left the ancestral land immediately and went to the primordial world fragment void together. But the battle lion clan's first-generation ancestor, the blood-devouring lion, stayed behind. In the past 2 years, the blood-devouring lion's injuries from the battle at the end of the primordial war had finally recovered completely. Moreover, it had improved even more, breaking through to the current primordial supreme 6th stage in one fell swoop. Although it was only a 6th-stage mighty figure, on the surface, it was inferior to the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, who were already first-stage Baron Supremes. Viewed in fact, even if the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock joined forces, they were far from being a match for the blood-devouring lion. Since as the first-generation descendant of the blood-ferocious lion, who was able to contend with the golden divine dragon, the void tortoise, and the primordial yiksha, and was the first-generation ancestor of the battle lion clan, the blood-devouring lion had obviously completely comprehended the 9 changes of the berserk lion bloodline. In other words, as long as he was willing, he could enter the 9th transformation of the berserk lion at any time. Under the state of the 9th transformation, the blood-devouring war lion was the same as Yi Xian. His cultivation level would increase by a large realm. Now that he was already a 6th rank mighty, once he entered the 9th transformation of the berserk lion, he would instantly become a 7th rank desolate supremacy. This was a late-stage desolate supremacy. Even the current Yi Xian's strongest combat power was not comparable to this. It was enough to show how powerful the blood-devouring war lion was, and this time, he clearly didn't come alone. Here at this moment, his body, which was only 100,000 feet tall, rushed out of the spatial rift. Immediately after, all kinds of battleships appeared one after another. Previously, when the nine-headed blood flood dragon and the cyan rock left, they had already told the 2 clan leaders in the ancestral land that the blood flood dragon clan, the cyan rock clan, and the warrior lion clan would migrate together under the leadership of the blood-devouring war lion. This time, when the blood-devouring war lion left the second universe and arrived at the void fragment of the chaos land, other than himself, all the members of the blood flood dragon clan, the cyan rock clan, and the warrior lion clan were all mobilized to migrate. In the ancestral land of the 3 clans, there were still some bloodline ancestors whose cultivation levels ranged from the universe supreme level to the primordial supreme level and even the primordial supreme level who were in deep sleep. But this time, these hibernating higher-ups of the 3 clans were also kept in a special storage treasure and migrated together. Hong. Hong long long, the earth-shattering roar continued to resound and did not stop for even a moment. Here at this time, the blood-devouring war lion had already retreated hundreds of millions of miles away. Its body was suspended in the void space. Its expression was calm, but there was a dim light in its eyes. Obviously, it was not in a hurry. It was quietly waiting for the armies of the 3 clans to gather behind it. All of this lasted for 3 whole days. During this process, the spatial rift that was torn open slowly closed several times. However, every time, the blood-devouring war lion would attack and tear it open again. After 3 days, no more battleships rushed out from the huge spatial rift and it began to close slowly. But, in the universe void space in front of the spatial rift, there were already 3 enormous battleship armies gathered. The 3 armies were gathered in clans. They belonged to the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan. Among the major clans and powers of the 3 main planes of the universe, these 3 clans were the only ones who had migrated to this fragment of the universe. From now on, the second plane of the universe, and even the 3 main planes of the universe, had nothing to do with them. Since the clans had migrated, everything in the past would become history. To these 3 clans, such a decision was tantamount to cutting off all means of retreat. If they did not succeed, they would die trying. If they were unable to gain a foothold in this primordial world fragment, the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan would most likely completely decline, drifting everywhere like rootless duckweed. Because of this, all the clansmen of the 3 clans were filled with the solemn and heroic feeling of a hero severing his arm, and when all of this converged together, it imperceptibly transformed into an indescribably solemn aura that suppressed the entire expanse of space. As far as the eye could see, each of the 3 armies had more than 5 billion battleships of various types. Combined, the total number of battleships was close to 20 billion. They were spread out in the void, and there was no end to them at all. In terms of high-end battle strength, aside from the blood-devouring war lion, there were 7 or 8 figures in front of each of the 3 battleship armies. All of them were powerful figures of the primordial era and above. Plus together, the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan had already awakened and migrated here. There were a total of 25 powerful figures of the primordial era. This, although the 25 powerful figures of the 3 clans had not reached the supreme master of the primordial era, it was not impossible for them to have the battle strength of a desolate master for a short period of time if they used some kind of secret bloodline technique at all costs. 10 billion battleships, 25 powerful figures of the primordial era, and the blood-devouring war lion, whose strongest battle strength could reach the 7th-rank desolate master realm. The battle strength of this newly arrived army was absolutely shocking and incomparably powerful. Roar! The blood-devouring war lion looked up and let out a shocking roar as it scanned the 3 armies gathered in the void space ahead. At the same time, it activated a secret technique that only it, the 9-headed Blood Flood Dragon, and the Green Sky Rock knew. Through this secret technique, the blood-devouring war lion could keenly sense the divine sense imprint left by the 9-headed Blood Flood Dragon and the Green Sky Rock even from a long distance away. The 3 old fellows had fought side by side since the end of the primordial era. In this aspect, they had a tacit understanding. Roar! Soon, as the secret technique was activated, the blood-devouring war lion immediately sensed it and let out a roar. Its body turned into a ray of light and shot toward the void space on the right side. Boom! 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 In an instant, an earth-shattering roar filled the air. The battleships of the 3 clans behind all activated their kinetic energy cabins and followed the blood-devouring war lion as they sped forward. In this direction, they were heading straight for the Star Alliance's Star Sector. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 4780. The Star Alliance was made up of the races of the Second Universe, one of the 3 main planes of the universe. Among the top 10 races of the Second Universe, the Dark Turtle clan had always been a lone wolf. After entering the void fragment of the universe, they broke away from the other races of the Second Universe and joined the Milky Way sector. Therefore, in fact, there were only 9 of the top 10 races in the Star Alliance. They were the Blood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, the Warrior Lion clan, the Enji clan, the Raging Bull clan, the Golden Eagle clan, the Colorful Python clan, the Greedy Wolf clan, and the Tree Spirit clan. This, the Blood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Warrior Lion clan, which were the top 3 of the top 10 races, had all been captured and became captives of the Magic Hall. They had always thought that the 9-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Cyan Sky Rock clan were the only commanders in the Star Alliance. As for the other 3 races, although they would come later, there was no sign of them. Now, after the last battle against the Magic Hall, the 9-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Cyan Sky Rock clan were nowhere to be seen. The entire Star Alliance only had a few Universe Supreme beings to keep up appearances. Their days were extremely awkward, and they had to tuck their tails between their legs and behave themselves. During this period of time, the races of the second universe of the Star Alliance had been holed up in the star sector that the Alliance occupied. Almost no one dared to leave the star sector and show themselves outside. If they ran into the subordinates of the Magic Hall, they would definitely be bullied and could only swallow their anger. There was no need for that. The 6 Universe Supreme beings of the Enji clan, the Raging Bull clan, the Golden Eagle clan, the Colorful Python clan, the Greedy Wolf clan, and the Tree Spirit clan were gathered in the palace of the Alliance headquarters. Since, after being forced to submit to the Magic Hall, the frequency of these meetings had become less and less. Previously, they had only met once every 3 to 5 days. After, they only met once every 10 days. Now, the 6 Universe Supreme beings only came once a month to gather in the palace of the Alliance headquarters. The committee, it's too awkward to meet, and no matter how much we discuss, it's pointless. That's why this situation is so natural. Alas, it's been 2 years. What a cowardly life. The voice belonged to a middle-aged man in a silver robe. Of course, this was his human form. Basically, every race in the second universe had the bloodline of a dire beast, but it was more convenient for them to transform into humans. This is the middle-aged man in the silver robe was named Ji Tao, and he was an elder of the Enji clan. He was at the pinnacle of the 9th level of the Universe Supreme realm. Among the 6 Universe Supremes present, he was the most powerful. With the 9-headed Bloodrakes and the Azure Rock in seclusion, the entire Star Alliance was under his control. But just as he said, Ji Tao's life has not been easy. Ever since the Big Five Alliance was forced to submit to the Magic Hall, their lives have been extremely miserable. Even he, a 9th Order Universe Supreme and a half-step Supreme being at the pinnacle of the Alliance, could only hole up in the star sector occupied by the Alliance. Normally, he wouldn't even dare to go out. It's so depressing that it makes one speechless. Counting the time, the army of our races left in the second universe will be here soon. He sighed. After a sigh, the Universe Supreme of the Barbarian Bull clan took over the conversation and said with anticipation, "This will be the last batch of battle power of our races to arrive. All the races will migrate one after another, including the bloodline ancestor who is still sleeping in the ancestral land. Let's not talk about the others. Just my Barbarian Bull clan alone has 1 Primordial Ancient Supreme and more than 10 Primordial Ancient Supreme beings. Basically, the top 10 races in the second universe are all like this. All of them have bloodline ancestors at the level of Primordial Ancient Supreme." Not bad. When the Barbarian Bull clan ancestor finished speaking, the Universe Supreme of the Colored Python clan took over the conversation, and a cold light flashed in his eyes from time to time. Even his tone was extremely cold. "Let's not talk about the Dark Turtle clan. There are 9 of the top 10 races in the second universe. Among the 9 races, there are Primordial Ancient Supreme beings in hibernation. Previously, the ancestors didn't know the situation, so they didn't wake up easily, but now, it's different. Which of our races doesn't have a long history? Now that we've formed an alliance, we're being suppressed by the Magic Hall of the Raging Ape. Even if we can tolerate this grievance, the bloodline ancestors in our races who are still in hibernation won't be able to tolerate it. That's what it should be." The Universe Supreme of the Greedy Wolf clan was excited to hear this, and a fierce aura burst out of his body. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's about time. We just need to wait for the last batch of our army to arrive in this space fragment of the ancient universe. Then, we'll definitely wake up the ancestors in our races." Humph. Although that violent ape is powerful, with just its own strength, it can already fight against the 4 powerful Desolate Supremes, the Blood Chelan, the 9 Demon Crocodile, the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock, and that Sky River Star Master Yi Xian. I don't know what kind of luck he has. In just a few decades, his combat power has increased to such a terrifying level, and he's even colluding with the Master of the Magic Hall. However, even if the 2 of them were to join forces, they would at most be able to deal with 8 primordial sovereigns, or even fewer. After all, the Heavenly River Star Lord, Yi Xian, doesn't have the secret blood technique of the Demon Palace Master, so he can condense two Blood Sea clones with the same battle prowess. Under such circumstances, we only need to wake up at least 5 barbarian saints. Then, with the help of 9 phantom demon crocodile and bloody unicorn, we'll be able to crush the high-end combat power of the magic hall. This is our only hope. Beside him, the tree spirit ancestor nodded, and this time, there won't be any more accidents. Don't forget, other than our Star Alliance, the other alliances also have their own primordial ancient supreme beings, and even the supreme primordial ancient supreme is still in hibernation. We're not the only ones who want to get out of the demon hall. The other 4 alliances won't stay out of this either. This time, the demon hall will definitely be annihilated. It's only a matter of time before this day comes. Boom. Rumble. His words made everyone present nod repeatedly. The haze that originally shrouded their hearts seemed to have dissipated by quite a bit. The expressions on everyone's faces became much better, and their eyes revealed the light of hope. Suddenly, without warning, an earth-shattering rumble erupted from the atmosphere of the planet where the Star Alliance's headquarters was located. Their auras were too shocking. Even the entire planet beneath their feet trembled slightly. Just by releasing their suppressive auras and not officially launching an attack, it was already so shocking. The existences that suddenly descended from outside the planet were definitely at the level of a desolate supremacy. Brain as these thoughts flashed through their minds, Ji Tao and the others' faces suddenly changed. Their bodies shook violently, and they stood up in shock, gasping in horror. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of this book. Chapter 4781. Hong. Hong Long Long, outside the atmosphere of the star where the headquarters of the Star Alliance was located, an earth-shattering rumble could be heard without any warning. The power was too shocking, even the entire star under their feet trembled slightly. Ji Tao and the other 5 Universe Supremes who were in the middle of a discussion suddenly changed their expressions. Their bodies trembled violently as they stood up in shock, exclaiming softly, "A desolate master? Not good, it must be the master of the magic hall. We're done for, we're done for. We were too arrogant. We actually thought that by hiding in our own nest, we could talk about a powerful desolate venerable. From the looks of it now, we were clearly discovered by him and he came in anger, with the temper of that raging ape. I'm afraid he won't let us off easily. We were too careless and forgot our place for a moment, inviting a fatal disaster. Everyone, should we escape immediately, or should we go out and admit our mistakes and beg for mercy? Where there's life, there's hope. From what I see, we should go out and admit our mistakes to the Demon Master. He's a magnanimous person, he won't be too calculative with ants like us. At most, he'll punish us, and we'll just grit our teeth and bear with it. All right. Hong. Hong Long Long, a bunch of trash, listen to what you're saying. With such virtue, such cowardice, do you still deserve to be the elders of the top 10 races? Where's the blood dragon? Where's the green rock? Where are they? Why did you leave them alone? Howl. Without waiting for Ji Tao and the others to finish their words, outside the atmosphere of the star, another rumble could be heard, accompanied by angry roars and roars. This was clearly the sound of the blood-devouring war lion, the elder of the war lion race. That's right, it must be him. Damn it, we made a mistake. What a disgrace. The one who came is not that raging ape, but the elder of the war lion race. He's as famous as the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock. Another powerful desolate supremacy has descended. I wonder if the army of the tree spirit race has come along with the war lion race. Fellow Taoists, we've been stifled for so long. The days of vexation are finally here. Our Star Alliance will soon be able to hold our heads high. Let's go out and welcome Patriarch War Lion. From the sound of his divine sense just now, it seems like he's not close yet. He's most likely just arrived at the edge of the star field. Roar. Roar, roar, roar. At the end of their speech, all 6 of them looked agitated. They leaped into the air and dashed out of the great hall of the headquarters of the Star Alliance. Around them, several Universe Knights and Universe Masters came forward to greet them. They followed them as they made their way toward the star sector controlled by the Star Alliance. At the edge of the cliff, he sped away. After a short while, the 6 of them led the elite troops behind them and rushed to the edge of the star field. Outside of the Star Alliance's territory, 3 massive fleets were rumbling toward them. Each of the fleets had more than 5 billion warships of all types and types. The total number of warships in the 3 fleets was close to 20 billion. They were spread out in the void space, and there was no end in sight. In terms of high-end combat power, aside from the blood-devouring war lion, there were still 7 or 8 figures in front of the fleets. All of them were at least as powerful as the primordial era. This time, the blood dragon, the green roc, and the war lion race had awakened and migrated to the star field. There were a total of 25 powerful beings from the primordial era, and all of them were in front of the 3 fleets. Although there were only 25 powerful beings from the primordial era, and their combat power had yet to reach the level of a primordial era supreme, it was not impossible for them to have the combat power of a desolate master for a short period of time if they performed some kind of bloodline technique at all costs. However, the combat power of a desolate master was obviously not comparable to that of a primordial era supreme. It was basically equivalent to a half-step desolate master. The scene was too shocking. 20 billion warships, 25 powerful beings from the primordial era, and the blood-devouring war lion, whose combat power could reach the 7th-ranked desolate master, the entire army spread out in the void, and stretched as far as the eyes could see. The overall strength of this army was absolutely shocking. It was incomparably powerful, and made Ji Tao and the others tremble slightly. They were really too excited. Roar. At this time, as the 3 fleets gathered in the void space in front of them, the blood-devouring war lion, who had maintained a distance of 10,000 feet, raised its head and let out an earth-shattering roar. At the same time, the blood-devouring war lion's voice rumbled through, frightening Ji Tao and the rest of the Star Alliance's higher-ups and experts. A bunch of trash. What did you just say? Where is the blood dragon? Where is the green roc? Where are they? Why did you ignore this? You are a disgrace to the top 10 clans. Roar. At the end of the sentence, the blood-devouring war lion roared again, his anger soaring to the sky. Compared to the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky roc, his temper was the most violent. The words he heard just now were unbearable, and he was already infuriated. After roaring violently, he immediately continued, "Where is the violent ape that you mentioned just now? What bullsh *T master of the magic hall, I will go and destroy him immediately." Hearing this, Ji Tao and the others trembled in fear. Their expressions changed drastically, and they immediately tried to persuade the blood-devouring war lion. Blood-devouring war lion ancestor, we should consider this matter at length. Yes, that violent ape is too strong. The blood unicorn, the 9-headed demon crocodile, the 9-headed demon ancestor, and the azure roc ancestor were not his match even when they joined forces. They have already been defeated twice by him. There is no way they can contend against him. It's not only the master of the magic hall, but the Sky River Star Master, Yi Xian, is also a supreme primordial. His battle strength is not weaker than the violent apes. With the 2 of them joining forces, they are now ruling over the Chaos Fragment. It's not only the Star Alliance formed by the clans of the Second Universe, but also the Myriad Race Alliance formed by the slave clans of the First Universe, the Human Race Federation formed by the 2 human camps and the original Thousand Luo Federation Senate, as well as the Ferocious Beast Alliance and the Survivors Alliance that originally existed in this fragment of space. All 5 alliances have now submitted to the Magic Hall. Even if the 5 alliances join forces, the 4 Supreme Primordial and the 12 Supreme Primordial are not Magic Hall's opponents. That's right, both the Violent Ape and the Sky River Star Master, Yi Xian, are too strong. Now, the other Desolate Supremes have not yet arrived, and the 9-headed Demon Ancestor and the Azure Rock Ancestor are still recovering in seclusion. The matter of overturning the Magic Hall can only be considered at length. Consider. Blood-devouring War Lion Ancestor, please calm down for now. This is a serious matter, so please don't be rash. Impulse is the devil, what? Even the combined forces of the Blood Dragon, the Green Roc, the Blood Unicorn, and the 9-headed Demon Crocodile are not a match for that violent ape? Could it be that he is at the peak of the 9th rank? These words caused the blood-devouring war lion's expression to change drastically. It raised its head and let out a shocking roar. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of this book. Chapter 4782. Up in the air, Ji Tao and the other leaders of the Star Alliance looked at each other. Bitter smiles appeared on their faces, then they sighed. Finally, one after another, they began to speak. Of course not. But that ape possesses the Blood Sea's secret art. Zhang Xian muttered to himself. Once he uses it, he can form 3 Blood Sea avatars in an instant. Each one has the same combat strength, and he is now a late-stage 7th stage Baron Master. In this way, once the violent ape uses the Blood Sea's secret technique, it is equivalent to splitting into 3, becoming 3 late-stage Desolate Venerables of the 7th Order. What is even more outrageous is that this secret technique seems to have been completely comprehended by him, and he has not been able to use it in 2 consecutive battles. At the very least, even if the 9-headed ancestor Green Rock, the Blood Qilin, and the 9-hell devil alligator work together, they would never be able to force him to the end of the secret technique's time limit. Every time Bao Yuan's 3 Blood Sea clones were still breathing fiercely, the 4 of them would be beaten up. They ran away. When he spoke up to hear, Ji Tao and the others turned their heads once more and exchanged glances with each other. After that, they didn't make another sound, and their faces revealed aggrieved and indignant expressions as they shook their heads and sighed without end. A late-stage 7th stage Baron Master? This kind of strength is not weak, but it's only on par with me. And I haven't heard of him in the primordial age. He must have cultivated to this level in later generations. Since he's a late-stage Baron Master, he naturally doesn't have the primordial fortune from the beginning of heaven and earth. This causes him to be congenitally weak. Even if his strength is on par with mine, I can definitely kill him under normal circumstances. At this time, the blood-devouring war lion had also calmed down, and a proud expression appeared on its face. It nodded and said, however, that's only under normal circumstances. Since Bao Yuan has the Blood Sea's secret technique, it's not fair. Although I'm not afraid of him, I have to admit that if all 3 Blood Sea avatars were to attack at the same time, I wouldn't be a match for Bao Yuan alone. In that case, I can't be too impulsive. That's tantamount to giving Bao Yuan a chance to defeat us one by one. That would be too easy for him. However, this kind of method is no different from cheating. I'm really shameless. When the blood-devouring war lion said those words, its face was filled with pride and righteousness. He made it sound as though although his strongest battle power could reach the 7th-ranked Desolate Venerable realm, it was not achieved by using a secret technique. Across from them, Ji Tao and the other Star Alliance leaders exchanged glances. The corners of their mouths twitched as they realized what had happened. They were embarrassed. Roar. Since that's the case, why don't you first lead the 3 clans' army into the star field and distribute the life stars and settle them down first? After raising its head and roaring, the blood-devouring war lion turned around and shot towards the void to the right. Its figure disappeared in the blink of an eye, but its voice still echoed in the void. As for this senior, I'll go find the 9-headed beast and the azure peng first. These fellows must have been waiting for this moment for quite some time. Boom! Rumble. As the blood-devouring war lion left, the countless battleships of the 3 clans, which had been hovering in the void, once again opened their kinetic engines. Amidst the thunderous rumbles, they slowly made their way towards the star field occupied by the Star Alliance. With the addition of 20 billion battleships, the Star Alliance's combat power had increased tremendously. Besides the blood-devouring war lion, the 3 battleships alone had 25 powerful beings from the primordial era in front of them, including universe supreme beings. There were more than 100 supreme beings, all of whom were as strong as Ji Tao and the other Star Alliance leaders. Besides, the 3 battleships also had powerful beings from the Blood Dragon, the Azure Peng, and the War Lion race who were still in hibernation. There were even Desolate Venerables. The Star Alliance did not dare to be careless. At the same time, on the other side of the Chaos Fragment, on the left side of the vast star field occupied by the alliance of 10,000 races, for the past 2 years, the leaders of the former slaves of the first universe in the alliance, like the Star Alliance, had not dared to show their faces outside. The magic hall was the dominant force in this part of the world. They were powerless to resist. Even if they encountered the wandering battleships of the magic hall, they could only avoid them and take a detour, rip. At the edge of the star field, there was a sudden and clear sound of ripping silk. The sound was loud and clear. When one looked closely, one could see a gigantic crack in the void of the universe. It spanned over 1,000 miles from top to bottom and had a diameter of over 100 miles. It was also 100 miles wide, and it was like a vertical eye in the void, causing people to feel a sense of horror. Boom! Rumble, rumble, rumble. Almost in the next instant, a thunderous rumble came from the spatial crack. It continued without end, causing one's heart to tremble. The spatial crack that suddenly appeared also began to expand in all directions from this moment on, although its speed was very slow. However, it continued to expand without stopping for a moment. It was as if a small hole had been torn open in the void, and an invisible force was spreading out from the inside of this small hole, making it bigger and bigger. It was extremely strange, and the commotion was not small at all. Not far away was the alliance of 10,000 races formed by the races of the first universe. Now that such a change had happened near the star sector, a large number of battleships and high-level members of the alliance rushed out from the star sector occupied by the alliance of 10,000 races. More and more experts and battleships gathered, and this void crack, which was originally only 1,000 miles long and 100 miles in diameter, kept expanding with low rumbling sounds. Time passed slowly, and after half a day, the void crack that was originally 1,000 miles long had become a huge black hole. It was oval-shaped and about 1,000,000 miles in diameter. It was like a star that had appeared in that remote star area, causing tens of thousands of people to fall. The crack in the void where the army of evil had arrived was exactly the same as the one in the star field. Moreover, this huge black hole that had just been formed was obviously not as simple as an ordinary black hole. The aura emitted from the black hole vaguely revealed the strong aura of a plane-level space wormhole. At this moment, the continuous low rumble finally disappeared. At this time, in the cosmic void not far from the black hole, the experts from the alliance of 10,000 races had already surrounded it. Everyone had a look of horror on their faces, but they did not make a sound. The entire void had completely fallen into a dead silence. Boom! Rumble, roar. Roar, the dead silence in the void did not last long. In less than half a meal's time, from the depths of this huge mysterious black hole, there was an earth-shattering rumble of thunder. There were also endless roars of beasts. Their auras were very powerful, as if they were all ancient mighty figures. There was even the aura of desolate supremacy mixed in. Every roar of the beasts revealed endless joy. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4783. Hong. Hong, long, long, howl. Howl, howl, howl. There was a dead silence in the void space, but it didn't last for long. After about half a meal, from the depths of this mysterious black hole that suddenly descended and condensed, there were earth-shattering rumbling sounds of thunder coming out. In addition to the thunder, there were endless roars of beasts. Although they couldn't see their figures, the auras coming from the black hole were very powerful, as if they were all great beings from the primordial era. There was even the auras of desolate masters mixed in, and there were quite a few of them. However, the strange thing was that every roar that came out of the giant black hole seemed to be filled with endless joy. All of this was too unexpected and inexplicable. Not far away in the void space, countless great beings from the Myriad Races Alliance who had just come out of the base camp were stunned. All of them looked surprised and doubtful. They turned to look at each other, and there was suspicion in their eyes. The Myriad Races Alliance was formed by the original slave races of the first universe. As for the most powerful forces, they were the Bloody Unicorn and the 9 Phantom Demon Alligator. However, these two powerful primordial supreme beings had disappeared after the battle in the Magic Hall 2 years ago. No one knew where they were hiding to find a place to recover and cultivate. They didn't return to the Myriad Races Alliance. Because they had nothing to do with the slave races of the first universe to begin with, and after this unforeseen event, they had abandoned the Myriad Races Alliance. Therefore, from a certain point of view, the Myriad Races Alliance, the Blood Kirin, and the 9U Demon Crocodile were basically separated. It didn't matter. The Myriad Races Alliance was in the same situation as the Star Alliance. The most powerful beings in the base camp of the Myriad Races Alliance weren't even great beings from the primordial era. They were only Universe Supreme beings. In terms of numbers, there were now more than 20 Universe Supreme beings in the Myriad Races Alliance, and most of them were at the initial stage of this level. Only a few races, such as the Giant Ferocious race, the Hell Ant race, and the Space Rat race, had a few 7th level or 8th level Universe Supreme beings. A late-stage Supreme being. Now, these 20 Universe Supreme beings were all here, but they didn't dare to get too close. They were hundreds of millions of miles away from the giant black hole that suddenly formed. Their eyes were filled with suspicion as they watched everything with rapt attention. Hong, long, long, howl. Roar. Within the black hole, the earth-shattering roars continued without stopping for even a moment. Moreover, it was filled with a sense of welcome. This scene continued for about half an incense stick of time. The roars coming from the black hole became clearer and clearer. It was as if a large number of powerful existences were rushing out from the depths of the black hole, getting closer and closer. Suddenly, a figure rushed out of the black hole. It was huge, and its body was filled with an incomparably dense aura of a mighty figure. Moreover, it was not an ordinary early-stage mighty figure. This figure was actually at the peak of the late-stage 9th stage Great Perfection realm, which was half a step. Venerable Bu Huang. What was even more surprising was that this half-step desolate supremacy was clearly a gigantic spatial rat. 7th Forefather? You've awoken from your slumber? The surprise came too quickly. In the void space far away from the giant black hole, the late-stage Universe Supreme Elder of the Space Mouse clan was stunned at first. Then he cried out involuntarily. There was a strong sense of ecstasy in his words that could not be dispersed. Screech, howl. Almost in the next moment, without waiting for the late-stage Universe Supreme Elder of the Space Mouse clan to finish his words, more than 20 figures rushed out of the mysterious black hole hundreds of millions of miles away along with violent roars and howls. These figures, there were both ferocious beasts, hell ants, and all kinds of space beasts of different races. But without exception, they were all ancestors of the slave races of the first universe. In just a short time, a total of 24 figures rushed out of the mysterious giant black hole, including the space mouse at the beginning. Without exception, all of them were late-stage mighty figures. Ancestor. Hiss. What did I see? The 5th-generation ancestor of my slime clan has awoken from his slumber and descended. More than 20 ancestors of various races, all of whom are late-stage or even pinnacle mighty figures. This is clearly the rhythm of the prosperity of the various races. Our alliance is finally rising. As these 24 figures rushed out of the mysterious giant black hole one after another, the expressions of the great beings and the upper echelons of the various races of the alliance, who were hundreds of millions of miles away, changed again and again. Finally, it turned into an earth-shattering sound. The sound of exclamations filled the air. Because of this, the entire expanse of the void was thoroughly boiling. Hong. Rumble. Everything did not end there. As the 24 almighty patriarchs of the various races in the first universe descended, after a short period of silence in the giant black hole behind them, in just half an incense stick's worth of time, sounds came again in an instant. The rumbling sound of thunder was earth-shattering, and it was even louder than when the 24 great beings of the various races had arrived. Hiss, what's going on? Could it be that more ancestors of the various races have arrived? Judging from the sound, it seems to be the rumbling sound of battleships. Could it be that the ancestors did not come alone? Have all the clansmen left in the ancestral land of the first universe migrated here? It seems that the commotion is not small. At least tens of billions of battleships are rumbling here. Even if not all the races of the first universe migrated here, I'm afraid that at least half of the forces, or half of the races, have arrived. Xiao. 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 Along with the cries of surprise, a large number of battleships rushed out of the giant black hole. There were all kinds of battleships, and most of them were 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters in diameter. There were also quite a few of them that were 50,000 meters and 100,000 meters in diameter. This scene lasted for 2 full days. During these 2 days, a large number of battleships, fortresses of various types had been rushing out of the mysterious giant black hole without stopping for a moment. At first, the high-level officials of the various races of the alliance of the 10,000 races cheered excitedly, but later, they gradually became numb and ordered the army to retreat, because the vast void hundreds of millions of miles ahead of them was full of battleships and troops of various races. Half a day later, the mysterious giant black hole gradually came to a stop. No more battleships rushed out. At this moment, as far as the eye could see, the total number of battleships gathered in the void had actually reached a total of 350,000 battleships. There were around 40 billion ships, a terrifying number. Roar. Screech, roar. When the higher-ups of the Alliance thought that it was over, another 4 earth-shaking roars drifted from the depth of the mysterious black hole. Their chi was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 4784. Roar. Screech, roar. An earth-shattering roar sounded, and from the depths of the giant black hole in front of them, 4 figures rushed out. These 4 figures were not very large. Obviously, they had not fully displayed their bloodline true body, and were only about 10,000 feet tall. However, the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was extremely powerful. They were all in the Supreme Desolation realm, and they had reached the mid-stage of this realm. All of them were at the 4th Order Supreme Desolation realm. A space rat, a hell ant, a giant ferocious, and a purple-gold evil spirit slime. This time, the original slave clans of the first universe that migrated from the first universe were only space rat, hell ant, giant ferocious, and evil spirit slime. For this migration, each of the 4 clans had awakened a mid-stage desolate venerable ancestor who was in a deep sleep and 6 late-stage desolate venerable ancestors. Now, all the clans of these 4 clans were resting in various types of battleships. The 4 clans had an army of 40 billion, and each battleship had countless clans. At this moment, as they arrived, the 4 powerful desolate venerables slowly swept their eyes across the crowd, and the voice of divine sense was instantly transmitted. I heard that the slave clans of the first universe are now united in this piece of the void of the Chaos World fragment, forming a myriad release alliance. Is this true? Now, the other clans have not migrated yet. Only our space rat, hell ant, giant ferocious, and evil spirit slime are here. From this moment on, the myriad release alliance will be temporarily led by our 4 clans. The other clans must listen to our orders unconditionally. Roar. Children, all of you, go to the base camp star field, and be assigned to your own star field. As for the senior clans of the original myriad release alliance, gather at the alliance headquarters immediately and report to us the battle situation. Before the voice fell, the 4 powerful mid-stage desolate venerables had already shot toward the depths of the star field where the myriad release alliance was stationed. The 24 late-stage supreme venerables from the 4 clans also followed closely. Seeing this scene, the higher-ups of the various races of the myriad races alliance were overjoyed. Without any delay, they hurriedly followed behind. They had to report everything related to the demonic palace to the 28 patriarchs of the 4 races, who were all almighties and above. Then, they would release the news that the Myriad Races Alliance would withdraw from the demonic palace and become independent again. In just a few days, the void of the primitive world fragment had undergone a drastic change. Of the 5 great alliances that had submitted to the demon palace, 2 of them had actually experienced a sudden surge in their combat strength. As for the Star Alliance, the Blood Wyrm, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans had all migrated to the Star Alliance. The Alliance's military strength had increased by 20 billion battleships, 25 primordial era experts, and the blood-devouring War Lion, which could reach the 7th-rank Desolate Sovereign Realm when activated by a secret technique. As for the Alliance of 10,000 races, the Space Rat, the Hell Ant, the Giant Ferocious, and the Evil Slime had all migrated to the Star Alliance. The Alliance's military strength had increased by 40 billion battleships, 24 late-stage Supreme Venerables, and 4 mid-stage Supreme Venerables. The commotion caused by this sudden change was simply too great. Just the sudden appearance of the two giant mysterious black holes was enough to alarm everyone in the surroundings. In fact, there were more than 2 such giant black holes. Including the one that first appeared and allowed the army of 10,000 evils to descend, there were actually 3 of them. These 3 giant black holes that had unexpectedly appeared did not dissipate or close up after they were formed. Instead, they continued to exist like stable wormholes in the void. In just a month or two, 3 mysterious giant black holes had appeared. All of them were extremely large and stable. They had condensed into wormholes that could be used to travel back and forth. All of this was obviously not simple. Although no one knew the cause of this change and how it was formed, one thing was certain, and that was that the void of the primitive world fragment had clearly started some unknown change. This change might be the prelude to the end of the primitive world. Although it was only a guess, it caused the various forces and countless experts to panic. The entire vast and boundless void strangely fell into silence. Even the Magic Hall, which had just been included in the army of 10,000 evils and had the 5th army under its command, remained silent and did not do anything even though they knew what was happening outside, within the Human Clan Federation and the Federation headquarters in the star, inside the Federation Hall at the peak of the towering mountain. Now, there were only 8 Human Federation experts sitting in the hall. Dong Zhaotian had been here not long ago, but now he had fallen and never returned. The various changes that had happened in the outside world these few days were immediately known by the 5 major alliances. Naturally, the Human Federation was no exception. Now, DR had gathered the other 7 Human Federation experts because of this. For the past 2 years, whether it was the Human Federation or the other 4 major alliances, they were extremely quiet. They did not continue to jump around outside. On the surface, it looked as if they were really willing to submit to the Magic Hall and become its subordinates. However, in reality, this was obviously impossible. It could be said that the 5 major alliances were temporarily dormant. Everyone was quietly waiting for an opportunity. They were quietly waiting for the core forces of their respective clans to descend before they could make changes. If there are no accidents, the desolate sovereign patriarch from the 2 camps of the Human Clan and the Federation Senate will descend here within a year. A cold light flashed in DR's eyes as he turned to look at the other 8 primordial experts. He continued, however, in the past 2 years, the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, have been quiet and have not made any moves. This is not a good thing, and it makes people uneasy. We originally thought that Dong Zhaotian could use the Beast Army to lure the Master of the Magic Hall out and even trigger a war between the Beast Army and the Magic Hall. It was not entirely impossible that the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, would turn against each other. Perhaps. But now, it seems that this plan has clearly failed. This time, not only did we not gain anything, we even lost an 8th level expert. And now, the Magic Hall has a 5th evil army. This is simply, DR's eyes flashed with hatred as he said this. He sighed unwillingly. Then, he changed the topic and continued, apart from this, I'm sure you have all received news of what has happened in the outside world during this time. The 5 major alliances were originally quietly waiting for reinforcements to arrive, but now, the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 races have finally arrived. As for the Star Alliance, the Blood Dragon Clan, the Azure Rock Clan, and the Battle Lion Clan have all migrated here. The Alliance's military strength has increased by 20 billion battleships, and as many as 25 primordial experts. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of this book. Chapter 4785. With the addition of the blood-devouring lion, which can reach the 7th rank Desolate Supremacy, the 9-headed Blood Dragon, and the Cyan Rock, the Star Alliance now has 3 powerful Desolate Supremacies. The Alliance of 10,000 Tribes has also made a lot of movements. The Space Rat, Hell Ant, Giant Ferocious, and Evil Spirit Slime have also migrated here. The Alliance's military strength has increased by 40 billion battleships, and 24 late-stage powerful figures have arrived, as well as 4 mid-stage Desolate Supremes. Speaking of this, DR's eyes flashed, revealing a touch of worry. Among the 5 alliances, the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes have suddenly increased their battle strength, and most of the other tribes in these 2 alliances are also migrating here. Gradually, their strength will become stronger and stronger, and it's only a matter of time before they surpass the current dominant Magic Hall. In addition, the Beast Alliance and the Survivors Alliance have also made changes. Although we can't speculate what it is, according to the intelligence, the Beast Alliance and the Survivors Alliance, who have always been enemies in the starry sky, have recently been communicating with each other. They are secretly communicating with each other. This is not a good sign. The Beast Alliance and the Survivors Alliance are not simple. In their respective ancestral lands, there are also powerful figures and desolate supremes in hibernation. If necessary, they can join the battle after paying a certain price. Now it seems that among the 5 alliances, only the Human Federation is still at a standstill. Although the follow-up reinforcements are expected to arrive soon, it's still unsettling that they haven't arrived yet. Therefore, after thinking for a long time, this old man has made a decision. Speaking of this, D'Air's eyes flashed. He took a deep breath and paused for a few breaths. Then he continued, as you all know, this old man is not a human, but a mechanical life created by the human technological pioneer Xing Bo, like the leader of the Tianji clan, De. To be honest, this old man doesn't know the situation on De's side. After all, he was created by Xing Bo first, and this old man is second, but on this old man's side, after Xing Bo created this old man, he left layers of fields in my body. These fields are both potential and seals. Over the years, this old man has broken through layer by layer, and his cultivation has also increased. Now, I still have 3 domains left in my body, and my cultivation has reached the late stage of the primordial age. Therefore, according to this old man's prediction, if I can break through another layer of the seal, my strength will definitely increase tremendously. It shouldn't be a problem for me to break through to the early stage of Supreme Master of Desolation in a short period of time. Although the early stage of Supreme Master of Desolation is not very useful to the Human Race Federation in our current predicament and is far from being able to compete with the Magic Hall, I can use a secret technique to let the reinforcements of the Human Race Federation arrive at this void fragment faster. Nearly half a month ago, when the armies of the 3 clans of the Blood Dragon clan of the Starry Sky Federation arrived, this old man has already used a secret technique to pass through the void and send a message back to the immortal star. Over there, the 2 camps of the human race and the headquarters of the former Wanluo Federation have already made preparations. Once this old man breaks through this layer of seal and breaks through to the Supreme Master of Desolation, I can use the secret technique to take advantage of the upheaval and the void fragment that has already begun in this void fragment to open up a stable space around the star area where the Human Race Federation is located. Then, I can lock onto the coordinates of the immortal star and lead the reinforcements here. At this point, the dim light in D'Air's eyes appeared again. He looked around at the other 7 Federation's powerful figures, who had already been stunned by his words, and then stood up. Everyone, this time I will be in seclusion for about 3 days. During this time, the Human Race Federation will be in charge of everything. I will leave it to you. After he finished speaking, his shoulders shook and his entire figure disappeared from the spot in an instant. For the Starry Sky Masters, a short 3 days was negligible. In the blink of an eye, it would pass by. 3 days later, D'Air's figure flashed and reappeared in the main hall of the Human Race Federation. There was a smile on his face, and he was calm and composed. The cultivation aura in his body, which was originally at the late stage of the Almighty Realm, had now reached the 2nd order of the Ancients. Previously, he had said that there were 3 layers of seals in his body. Now, only 1 layer of the 3 seals had been broken, and he already had the cultivation of a 2nd order Desolate Venerable. It could be seen that if the remaining 2 layers of seals were broken, his cultivation strength was very likely to skyrocket to the late stage of the Desolate Venerable realm, or even the peak of the 9th order. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 7 powerful figures of the Human Race Federation in the main hall turned pale with fright. When they looked at D'Air again, the look in their eyes changed instantly. Previously, they had only thought that D'Air was very mysterious, but they had never thought that his foundation would be so terrifying. Everyone, everything is ready. Next, we will open a stable wormhole at the edge of the star field occupied by the Human Race Federation. Let's bring in the reinforcements." With a faint smile, Dr. finished speaking and disappeared instantly. When he reappeared, he was already at the edge of the star field occupied by the Human Race Federation. The other 7 powerful figures of the Human Race Federation did not stop and quickly followed. However, they only stood in the void behind and did not approach. Whoosh! As a cold light flashed in his eyes, Dr. urged the power in his body and fully activated an unknown secret technique. With a shake of his hand, a fine light shot out. In the blink of an eye, it was hundreds of millions of miles away to the right. In an instant, there was a burst of light, hiss. In the next instant, as the fine light bloomed with endless light, there was suddenly a clear sound of silk ripping in that void. The movement was not small at all. Looking over, a huge crack in the void of the universe in the distance had been torn open. It was thousands of miles long from top to bottom and hundreds of miles in diameter. It was like a vertical eye in the void. It was horrifying. Boom! Boom! Immediately after, from this crack in the void, there was a continuous rumbling sound of thunder, which made people tremble in fear. Moreover, as these muffled sounds of thunder continued, this crack in the void that had suddenly appeared was clearly expanding in all directions. It was expanding. Although the speed was very slow, it was continuous and did not stop for a moment. At a glance, it was as if a small hole had been opened in the void. Then, there was an invisible force that pushed out from this small hole, making it bigger and bigger. And this void crack, which was originally only thousands of miles long and hundreds of miles in diameter, continued to expand in the midst of the low rumbling sound of thunder, becoming bigger and bigger. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, half a day had passed. The void crack, which was originally thousands of miles long, had become a huge black hole. Its diameter was terrifying, and it was hundreds of millions of miles wide. It was far bigger than the 3 mysterious black holes that had appeared before. Please remember the domain name of the book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4786. This piece of eldritch world fragment void had already started some kind of unknown mysterious change. The 3 starry sky wormholes that were like giant black holes that had unexpectedly appeared one after another previously were proof of this. However, those 3 starry sky wormholes were naturally formed. And now, this starry sky wormhole that had appeared outside the star sector occupied by the Human Clan Federation was caused by Dr. whose cultivation had already reached level 2 desolate supremacy, using some kind of secret method to make use of this piece of eldritch world fragment void to start the change that had already started. Thus, it was artificially located and forcibly torn apart. Therefore, under the influence of human factors, its formation was obviously faster. After only half a day, this black hole no longer continued to expand outwards. Instead, it completely stabilized. The low rumbling that had been going on all this time also disappeared. This piece of eldritch world void, which was originally extremely remote, completely fell into a dead silence. It was exactly the same as half a day ago. However, this huge black hole that had just formed was obviously not as simple as an ordinary black hole. The aura that was emitted from the black hole was not only extremely similar to the plane-level starry sky wormholes that connected the 3 main starry sky planes, but it was also extremely large. Even its diameter was extremely terrifying, reaching tens of millions of miles, close to 100 million miles. Even a giant star could pass through this starry sky wormhole. This scene was really too shocking. The other 7 almighty experts of the Human Clan Federation who were standing in the void far away were already stunned, their faces full of horror. They did not understand why Dr. had made this starry sky wormhole so vast that even stars could pass through it. It was simply speechless. However, there was one thing that they could be sure of. That was, even if Dr. had used some kind of power of law that had already started to change in this piece of eldritch world fragment void, and he was now a level 2 desolate supremacy, but this one was so terrifying and stable. It was absolutely impossible for him to build such a starry sky wormhole with his own strength. Without a doubt, on the other side of the starry sky wormhole, there must be the Human Clan's technology camp, which was the upper echelons of the everlasting dynasty, helping. Moreover, the cultivation level of the person who helped was definitely not weaker than D-Air, or even stronger. There was more than one person. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 7 almighty experts of the Human Federation were suddenly invigorated. They turned their heads and exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with a strong sense of surprise. Now, the Human Federation already had D-Air, a second-order early Baron Master. If they could get 2 more Baron Masters, they wouldn't be any weaker than the Star Alliance or the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes. Furthermore, if the 3 alliances reached an agreement and joined forces, with the addition of the 4 Desolate Supremes, the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile, the 9-headed Blood Dragon, and the Azure Sky Rock, the pinnacle of the Magic Hall, suppressing the Master of Magic Hall and the Master of Sky River, Yi Xian, would not be a problem. Boom. Rumble. Behind them, in the star area occupied by the Human Federation, a large number of battleships were sailing out. Some of the star area experts with high cultivation bases were crossing the void with their physical bodies. The commotion that happened outside the star area was too big. The experts of the Human Federation who were in the stars with life in the depths of the star area were alarmed. When they arrived, they saw the giant space wormhole standing in the void. After being stunned for a moment, a look of horror appeared on their faces as they exclaimed, "Oh my God, what happened? Why would such a vast space wormhole suddenly appear outside the star area? The diameter is close to 100 million miles, and the aura of the wormhole is extremely stable. This is obviously a giant plane passage that can even pass through a giant star." Hiss. "Look, the State Preceptor's cultivation base, Second Order Supreme Ancient Master? How is that possible? In just a few days, the State Preceptor's cultivation base has increased by a few small levels. Is he now a early Baron Master? It's like a dream, so unreal. No matter what happened, at least the State Preceptor's cultivation base is real. The Human Federation finally has a Supreme Ancient Master. Compared to before, we have more confidence. And this space wormhole with a terrifying diameter. I heard that the Star Federation and the Alliance of 10,000 races have undergone great changes. Several large races left in the 3 main star areas have migrated here. Could it be that the reinforcements of the Human Federation have arrived? Boom. Rumble. Just as the edge of the star area behind them was filled with endless exclamations, an earth-shattering roar came from the giant space wormhole in front of them. This was clearly the rhythm of a large number of battleships coming from the other end of the wormhole. At this time, the 8 supreme experts of the Human Federation, including D-Air, were all present. It seemed that they had been prepared for this. Perhaps the appearance of this giant space wormhole had something to do with them. Then, there was no need to guess which camp the battleships coming from the wormhole belonged to. It must be one of the 2 camps of the human clan, or the army under the jurisdiction of the former alliance of 10,000 races, which had always had a close relationship with the human clan. In addition to a large number of battleships, there must be many supreme experts and even supreme ancient masters among them. After all, both the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 races each had more than 20 primordial experts and several primordial supremes. The 2 human factions and the Council of Elders of the former Luo Federation were stronger than them. If they sent reinforcements, their overall strength would be greatly reduced. How could they be weaker than them? As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the experts of the Human Federation gathered at the edge of the star area behind them and watched from afar instantly became excited, their chests heaving up and down. Even the eyes of the other 7 powerful figures of the Federation, who were standing in the void far behind D-Air, were blazing with brilliance. Their faces were filled with thick, undispersible anticipation, which was rapidly spreading. However, the roar of thunder in the giant black hole in front of them continued, and it was getting louder and louder. It was clear that the battleship army coming through the wormhole was getting closer and closer to the exit of the wormhole. However, even after waiting for 2 hours, all they could hear was the sound of the ship, but they couldn't see it. The giant black hole was empty. Not to mention a battleship, not even a single strand of hair could be seen floating out of it. Rumble. Just as the experts from all sides were beginning to feel a little impatient, the roar of thunder from the giant black hole in the void hundreds of millions of miles ahead suddenly became louder. Subsequently, a colossal figure that no one had expected charged out from within the enormous black hole. Even an enormous wormhole that was almost 50,000 kilometers in diameter was barely enough for it to pass through, and this clearly showed how enormous and terrifying its size was. At this moment, the void fell into a dead silence. Everyone opened their mouths wide and gasped, their eyes almost popping out of their sockets. After a few seconds, someone cried out in surprise, "What? This is the immortal star?" Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4787. Rumble. With an earth-shattering boom, an unimaginable behemoth charged out of the gigantic black hole. It was so massive that it exceeded everyone's expectations. Even a gigantic wormhole with a diameter of nearly 50 million kilometers was barely enough for it to pass through. It was obvious how massive and terrifying its size was. The moment this behemoth rushed out of the giant wormhole, the entire vast void fell into a deathly silence. All the experts who saw this scene with their own eyes opened wide. At the same time, they sucked in a breath of cold air, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Their eyes widened. After a few seconds, someone cried out in surprise, "What? This is actually an immortal star?" Along with this exclamation breaking the silence, numerous exclamations of shock and astonishment instantly resounded in the sky, and they covered the heavens and the earth as they surged over like a furious tide. How is this possible? The science and technology faction actually teleported an immortal star over? It's no wonder they made the wormhole's diameter so terrifying. In fact, with a diameter of nearly 50 million kilometers, it's barely enough for an immortal star to pass through. If the wormhole was any smaller, it would be stuck inside, a miracle. This is definitely a miracle. Moving a gigantic planet and all the living beings on it from one starry sky realm to another starry sky realm. What kind of heaven-defying means is this? It would probably take at least a half-step heavenly Tao realm existence to do it. This is too shocking. It's amazing. It's definitely a big deal. The Human Federation can finally hold its head high. We don't have to suffer the humiliation of the demonic palace in this piece of the untainted world anymore. SSS. Quick, look behind the immortal star. Good, you still have other big guys. Boom. Rumble, along with the earth-shattering cries of astonishment, a second big guy rushed out of the giant wormhole that had just emerged from the undying star. This was also a star, but it was only slightly smaller than the immortal star. It was clearly one of the 9 satellites around the immortal star. This was still not the end. Rumble. After the first satellite charged out, in less than half an hour, the second satellite charged out of the gigantic wormhole and headed towards the immortal star that had already floated to the right of the wormhole. This scene was so shocking that it once again stunned the countless starry sky powerhouses in the surrounding void. Everyone's mouth was wide open, and once again, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets from staring. What happened next made everyone a little numb. The stars that rushed out of the giant wormhole were all familiar. They were the satellites that surrounded and protected the undying star. There were originally 8 such satellites around the immortal star. With the addition of the immortal star, there were exactly 8 satellites and 9 satellites. They stood in the space of the Third Universe's science and technology faction. Now, after the immortal star charged out, there were exactly 8 satellites that charged out of the gigantic wormhole. They were the 8 satellites that had stood around the immortal star in the space of the Third Universe's science and technology faction. It was not until 6 hours later that these 8 satellites all charged out of the gigantic wormhole and gathered around the immortal star that had descended first. Their formation and position in the space was exactly the same as before in the space of the Third Universe's science and technology faction. It was exactly the same in the void of the camp, showing a 3-dimensional 9 palaces. During this process, the entire vast void of the universe had completely fallen into a dead silence. Other than D-Air, who had a faint smile on his face, even the other 7 powerful figures of the Federation who stood in the void behind him had the same expression. Their faces were full of shock. Let alone the other experts of the Human Race Federation further away. As the undying star's 9 palaces system fully descended and reappeared in the space to the right, the deathly stillness lasted for another half an incense stick's worth of time. Only then did the experts of the Human Federation wake up from their daze. Their bodies shook violently, and their expressions changed drastically. Like a wave of astonishment, they once again resounded throughout the space. Is this too much of a dream? In the space in front of us, there is clearly a familiar star with 8 satellites and 9 satellites. Could it be that we have returned to the science and technology faction of the third universe? What a terrifying method. He actually teleported the undying star and the 8 satellites around it into the void of this fragment of the untainted world through a giant wormhole. What a terrifying method. He teleported the undying star and the 8 satellites around it into this fragment of the untainted world. This is clearly the rhythm of the human race's science and technology faction's complete migration. Now that the Emperor Star has arrived first, will the next be the Emperor Stars of the 3 empires and the capital stars of the various superpowers under the empires? Hiss. That scene is simply terrifying. Even if it's just the human race's technological camp, the void territory it occupies is vast and boundless, with countless administrative planets. If all of them migrate here, what can a small demon palace amount to? No, listen, after a short silence in the gigantic wormhole in front of us, there is clearly another rumbling sound, and it is getting louder and louder. This is clearly the rhythm of things not over yet. Heavens, it won't be more stars descending one after another, will it? What kind of terrifying existence has awakened in our human race this time? This is simply too shocking, I can't imagine. Boom. Rumble. Sure enough, as the exclamations in the surrounding space resounded again, there was another rumbling sound from the gigantic wormhole that had just rushed out of the 9 gigantic stars. From the sound of it, it was clearly not any weaker than when the immortal stars 1 Master, 8 Satellites, and 9 Palace had rushed out of the wormhole one after another. Soon, as the rumbling resounded, the surrounding space fell into a deathly silence once more. It wasn't just the countless champions of the Human Federation who were watching from the edge of the planetary system who did not show any unusual movements. Even the immortal star and 9 Palace that had just arrived did not have a single figure rushing out of the wormhole. It was as if the champions of the immortal star already knew about it all, and were not in a hurry to rush out of the wormhole, and were instead waiting for it all to be over. Whoosh! Rumble, under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, as an earth-shattering rumble of thunder sounded, another behemoth rushed out from the giant wormhole in the void in front of them. But this time, it was no longer a round planet. It was a continent, or to be precise, a gigantic palace that was not much smaller than the immortal star. It was entirely silver-white in color and emanated a searing radiance. The Temple of Glory? That's the Temple of Glory. That's actually it. Legend has it that the Council of Elders at the headquarters of the 10,000 Net Federation is a silver palace the size of a star. It is also known as the Temple of Glory, but no one has actually seen it before. Is it finally showing itself today? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version, M. Chapter 4788. Whoosh. Rumble, with a thunderous rumble that shook heaven and earth. A behemoth rushed out of a giant wormhole in the distant void as everyone watched, and this time, the behemoth that rushed out was not a planet. Instead, it was a colossal palace that was not much smaller than an imperishable star. Like a colossal continent that stretched across the stars, it was entirely silver-white in color and emanated a searing radiance. After a brief silence, someone in the void quickly recognized the colossal palace, and exclamations of shock echoed like tidal waves. According to legend, the Council of Elders at the headquarters of the 10,000 Luo Federation was a silver palace that was as large as a planet. It was also known as the Temple of Glory, but no one had actually seen it before. In fact, it was said that it did not even exist. That was because there was no real conclusion all along, but now, with the arrival of this colossal palace that resembled a celestial continent, the legend was finally confirmed. The 10,000 Luo Federation was all but a name now, with the various races of the second universe no longer obeying their orders and withdrawing from the Federation. Now, only the 2 human factions were left amongst the various races and factions of the 10,000 Luo Federation. Be that as it may, the truth was that even the core leaders of the 2 human factions had never once underestimated the 10,000 Luo Federation or looked down on them. To the 2 human factions, they simply did not care about the so-called rallying power of the 10,000 Luo Federation in the second universe. What the leaders of the two human factions truly valued was the Council of Elders of the 10,000 Luo Federation, in other words, the silver-white palace that stretched across the void like a continent. The Temple of Glory was the Council of Elders of the 10,000 Luo Federation and the foundation of the 10,000 Luo Federation. As long as it existed, the 10,000 Luo Federation's true depth and foundation would not be weakened at all. Ever since the 10,000 Luo Federation was founded, the two human factions and the various races of the second universe had provided untold amounts of cultivation resources. These resources were all used by the myriad Luo Federation's Council of Elders to recruit wandering old monsters in the starry skies. They would sit in the Council of Elders and become the so-called elders of the Federation of different cultivation bases and levels. As time passed, no one knew how many celestial champions were slumbering within the silver-white Temple of Glory. Still, one thing was for sure, every elder of the Federation who had the right to stay in the Temple of Glory that resembled a colossal planet was at least above average immortal tier. The so-called sector overlords were existences that hadn't even reached the sempiternal realm. They didn't even have the qualifications to enter. As for the most powerful beings slumbering in the depths of the Temple of Glory, it was said that there were no less than 3 paragons of the ancients, but they would not awaken so easily, even if it was just a temple. The Temple of Glory was exceedingly mysterious and had such shocking depth that no one would dare to underestimate it. At this moment, as it rushed out of the giant black hole and descended into the void of the primordial world fragment, the gazes of countless experts of the Human Federation gathered at the same time. They were all secretly guessing in their hearts. Inside this mysterious silver-white palace. Now that it had awakened, what was the cultivation of the most powerful being that was guarding it? Rumble, right at this moment, in the giant black hole in the distance in the void in front of them, an earth-shattering rumble of thunder rang out again without any warning. Around the void, every Human Federation champion was taken aback. Then, their eyes lit up and their breathing quickened, and they turned expectantly towards the giant black hole in the distance. They were certainly looking forward to it, and it was certainly worth looking forward to. First, out of the giant wormhole that was almost 100 million miles wide, the immortal star was the leader of the 8 planets and 9 planets. In other words, the immortal star was the entire planetary system. Then, before anyone could react, the Temple of Glory, which had always been a legend in the 3 main planes of the stars for tens of thousands of years, and which no one had ever seen with their own eyes, came roaring out of the wormhole, descending with a rumble. The 2 behemoths that had rushed out before were beings of that level. And now, with another thunderous rumble echoing from the giant wormhole, how could the 3rd behemoth that was about to rush out be an exception? No matter how weak it would definitely be something extraordinary, that was certain. Everyone was guessing what the being that had rushed out of the giant black hole this time was. Only D-Air was still smiling faintly, clearly already knowing the result, and was confident. Whoosh! This time, the rumbling of thunder in the giant wormhole didn't last for too long. After only half an hour, a gray shadow rushed out of the giant wormhole with a sharp whistling sound. It did not go far, but stopped abruptly in front of the wormhole, standing side by side with the immortal 9 stars and the Temple of Glory. Everyone was left dumbstruck in that very moment. Their mouths were slowly hanging open, a look of astonishment appearing on their faces while their eyes were at a loss. This time, what was charging out of the wormhole was neither a planet like the 9 stars of eternity nor a colossal continent like the Temple of Glory. Even if it was as massive as a planet, there was no way to tell what it was at all, since it was just a canopy. It was just a blurry gray shadow, standing there like a gray black hole. Grandmaster, that is, after a brief moment of blankness, the 7 great beings of the Federation who were hovering in the void behind all turned to look at D-Air at the same time. One of them asked tentatively, the look of anticipation on his face thickening. They were all ancient great beings from both human factions, and yet they did not know what that blurry gray shadow that resembled a planet was. Realizing this, the great beings of the Federation who were hovering in the void suddenly became interested. They all held their breaths and listened attentively, wanting to know the truth and origin of that blurry gray shadow from D-Air. D-Air smiled faintly. There's nothing else. Tianju Palace. Although the Tenju Celestial Palace was also a cultivation sect, its position was unique and transcendent. Although it was not like the Immortal Dynasty in name, which commanded the entire cultivation camp and had great authority. In reality, it was only one of the 10 Jews' celestial palaces. Even if several other sects and countries joined forces, they were still far from being a match for it. Its position as the supreme overlord of the cultivator faction had already been established. The ancestral ground of the 10 Jews' celestial palace was located in the first palace, also known as the Sky Palace. The palace master of the Sky Palace was the highest leader of the entire 10 Jews' celestial palace. The second palace was also known as the Sky Palace. The palace master of the Sky Palace was in charge of external affairs of the sect, and was in charge of communication with the Immortal Dynasty and the 10,000 Net Federation. The third palace was known as the Sky Palace. The Sky Palace master of the Sky Palace was in charge of the punishment of the 10 Jews' celestial palace. These three palaces were the most powerful and mysterious of the 10 Jews' celestial palaces, and their positions were extraordinary. The 10 Jews' celestial palaces were located in different environments. One was an incomparably huge celestial body, while the other was a boundless continent suspended in the void. The sky was round and the earth was round. However, the Sky Palace had never appeared in the eyes of the world. Who would have thought that it would actually appear this time? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4789. In the void of space outside the Terran Federation's planetary system, following the arrival of the Sky Extinction Palace, which resembled a star but was actually a blurry gray shadow that resembled a gray black hole, the gigantic black hole in the void ahead finally quieted down. There were no more rumbling sounds, and no other beings rushed out. From the looks of it, the arrival of the Terran Federation's so-called reinforcements had finally come to an end. At the same time, in the void in front of the wormhole, 3 colossal objects were lined up in a row. The sight was shocking and eye-catching. On the left were the 9 immortal stars, with the main star at the center and 8 satellites surrounding it, forming a 3-dimensional 9-palace layout. On the right was the Temple of Glory, which resembled a gigantic continent. It was silvery white and dazzling, exuding a sacred and awe-inspiring presence that made people not dare to look at it directly. In the center was the most mysterious Sky Extinction Palace. It resembled a star, but was merely an almost circular blurry light. It was gray in color, and its interior was so dark that nothing could be seen. It was so mysterious that it gave rise to endless fanciful thoughts. The 3 colossal objects came from the 3 major factions of the Terran Federation, and were all core existences. From this, it could be seen that although the 2 major factions of the Terran race still had a large number of subordinates in the third universe, they had not migrated here. However, the general trend of the migration was basically set, and the subsequent migration would be carried out gradually. However, those were not the issues that the Terran Federation champions who were now in the void of the Chaos Fragment were concerned about. They were more concerned about the 9 immortal stars, the Temple of Glory, and the Sky Extinction Palace that had arrived here. They were curious about the cultivation level of the strongest individuals that were in charge, and how many of them there were. Over the last few years, they had been suppressed too much by the magic hall that had appeared out of nowhere in the void of the Chaos Fragment. Everyone's heart was filled with resentment, and they could not calm down. Moreover, the master of the magic hall and Yi Xian, the Star Lord of the Sky River, were so powerful that even with the 2 of them working together, they only had a few barren supremacies fighting power. There was really no hope. Moreover, the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 races had recently risen as well. Whether it was the slave races of the first universe or the second universe, they were no match for the 2 major factions of the third universe. Now that the 2 major factions of the Terran race and the Temple of the Elders of the 10,000 Net Federation had arrived at the same time, it would be too disappointing if the peak existences in charge were too few and not enough to be brought out. Of course, no one doubted the number of superior beings and desolate supremes slumbering in the imperishable star, Sky End Palace, and the Temple of Glory. However, whether those pinnacle beings were still slumbering or had already awakened was completely different. It was impossible for all of them to have awakened. The only thing that the experts of the Human Federation and the surrounding void were hoping for was that the top existences that had already awakened could be as many as possible. They longed for the feeling of being able to hold their heads up high. These few short years of grievance and cowardice were simply like boom. Rumble, just as all the experts of the Human Federation in the surrounding void were secretly pondering, there was another earth-shattering roar in the void in front of them. Be it the immortal 9 stars, the Sky Extinction Palace, or the Temple of Glory, all of them moved. Inside the immortal 9 stars, countless fortresses and fortresses of various sizes rushed out from the atmosphere of the 9 stars and spread out in the void ahead. In a short time, they occupied the void with a radius of nearly 100 million miles. There were countless battleships of all kinds. What rushed out of the Tianju Palace were starry battleships of various shapes and sizes. Without exception, they were all extremely large, and their number was also extremely shocking, more than 10 billion. As for the number of experts of the human clan in the battleships, the Tianju Palace was filled with them. It was easy to imagine. It was a sight that left everyone dumbstruck. The hazy gray shadow that represented the Sky Extinction Palace was only the size of a single star, and yet so many colossal starships had rushed out of it. From the looks of it, it would not be able to hold them all. Clearly, the insides of the mysterious, hazy gray shadow must have been like a real black hole, with a world of its own. Or perhaps it was a mobile, independent world of its own. Aside from that, many warships and battleships were rushing out from the Temple of Glory on the right. Although they were few in number, numbering only 1 billion in total, every single one of them was a behemoth with a diameter of 1,000,000 feet. Like the Sky River Star, every single one of them was a superstar of the same class. In less than half a day, 3 frightening legions had appeared in the void before them. The total number of warships and starships was around 40 billion, and would not lose out to the Star Alliance or the alliance of 10,000 races. Still, that might not be all of them. Who knows, there might be more warships and starships in the immortal 9 stars, the Sky Extinction Palace, and the Temple of Glory. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. We haven't seen each other for a few decades, and I didn't expect you to be a mid-level desolate venerable already. Congratulations. With a faint sound of breaking through the air, more than 20 figures rushed out of the immortal star. The leader was the immortal emperor. He was walking in the void with a smile on his face, and he was already saluting the imperial advisor, D-Air, congratulating him. The aura that emanated from his body had reached the 4th level of the primordial great beings, and he was a mid-level great being. But in fact, the immortal emperor was not the strongest existence among the 20 or so figures. Among them, more than half were universe supremes, and there were also 12 primordial great beings like the immortal emperor. The 2 human race elders who were walking at the back were emitting the terrifying aura of a middle-stage desolate supremacy. You are too kind, great emperor. Seeing the immortal emperor again after a few decades, D-Air showed a warm smile on his face. He waved his hand and replied politely, Great Emperor, you did not fall behind in your cultivation either. In the 3 main planes of the starry skies, you have also broken through to the mid-level great beings. Now that you've reached the intermediate almighty realm, you're even more worthy of celebration than me. As the 2 of them chatted, almost 30 figures rushed out from the Sky Absolute Palace and the Temple of Glory on the other side of the void. Their auras were so shocking that they attracted everyone's attention. As if they had agreed beforehand, the figures that rushed out from the Sky Absolute Palace and the Temple of Glory were 12 Universe Supremes, 12 Primordial Great Beings, and 2 Primordial Great Beings. When added together, the overall strength of the top leaders of the 3 factions of the Human Federation was simply shocking. There were a total of 36 Universe Supremes, 36 Primordial Great Beings, and even 6 Primordial Great Beings. Including D-Air, who had just broken through to the Desolate Venerable level, the Human Federation now had a total of 7 Desolate Venerables. Force. Whether compared to the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, or the Magic Hall and the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun, the Human Federation was simply a force to be reckoned with. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 4790. In the void, cheers resounded across heaven and earth like a tide that did not stop for a long time. This time, the Human Federation's combat power had greatly increased. The immortal 9 stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory had all arrived at the same time. Compared to the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, and the magic hall of the forbidden grounds of rising sun, the Human Federation was practically the strongest. Aside from the tens of billions of warships, there were 36 supreme beings, 36 primordial beings, and even 6 supreme beings of the ancients. Including D-Air, who had recently ascended to the Desolate Supreme level, the Human Federation now had a total of 7 Desolate Supremes. It was definitely something worth celebrating. When the countless champions of the Human Federation received the news, they instantly felt a sense of exaltation. They were finally turning the tables. Boom, rumble, in the void, an earth-shattering rumble resounded. The warships that filled the vast void automatically parted to the left and right, leaving a wide void passage in the center. Then, the immortal 9 stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory moved one after another, following the void passage and heading towards the depths of the planetary system occupied by the Human Federation. Soon, they disappeared. The planetary system was very vast. From now on, the immortal 9 stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory would be stationed in the deepest part of the planetary system, guarding the Human Federation and giving orders. Of course, if the situation called for it, they could sail out from the depths of the planetary system at any time like the other warships, traversing the void of the universe and engaging in all sorts of wars. After the immortal 9 stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory entered the depths of the planetary system, the sea of warships that had retreated to the side started moving as well, slowly entering the planetary system. When everything was over, the champions of the various factions of the Human Federation who had gathered at the edge of the planetary system returned to the planetary system in joy. Then, the entire Federation would celebrate for 3 days. Because from now on, they would no longer have to be enslaved by the magic hall of the forbidden grounds of rising Sunday. A heavy burden was lifted from their shoulders, and they could make a comeback. This scene did not escape the eyes of the scouts of the other forces in the distant void. Although the current 5 great alliances had become part of the magic hall, the entire vast and boundless chaos fragment had been peaceful for 2 years because of this. But in the past few months, it felt like a storm was brewing again. First was the arrival of the All-Evil Legion. Then, they mysteriously submitted to the Magic Hall and became the 5th Legion under the Magic Hall. Everyone was in an uproar, and everyone was uneasy. Shortly after, the blood-devouring War Lion brought the Blood Dragon and the Green Rock War Lion over to the Star Alliance, which caused an uproar. Without waiting for all the forces to come back to their senses, the alliance of 10,000 races formed by the original slave races of the first universe also sent a huge reinforcements. Both the regular forces and the high-end forces of the primordial age were not inferior to the Star Federation. They were qualified to compete with the Magic Hall. Under such circumstances, the higher-ups of the other small forces were naturally restless. They had already sent out scouts to wander around the chaos fragment occupied by the 5 great alliances. They were monitoring the situation in real time so that they could make appropriate countermeasures if there were any unusual movements. In fact, it was not only these idle small forces that had sent out scouts. The Alliance of the Survivors and the Ominous Beast Alliance of the 5 Alliances, and even the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races, whose strength had skyrocketed, had already sent more or less scouts to quietly wander in the void of this fragment of the untainted land. Not only did they monitor the movements of the other forces and alliances, but they also paid close attention to the reactions of the Magic Hall, and now, such a shocking event had happened on the Human Federation's side. The 2 factions that formed the Human Federation and the core of the former Senate had arrived at the Chaos Fragment at the same time. The commotion was so great that the scouts of the various factions and alliances who were wandering in the Chaos Fragment were drawn to it at once. In fact, the entire process of the arrival of the immortal 9 stars, Sky Extinction Palace, and the Temple of Glory had been witnessed by the scouts, and would be reported back to the leaders of the factions behind them as soon as possible. At this moment, as the domineering huge army of the Human Federation entered the star field one after another, the scouts of the major forces and alliances who were watching all this from the distant void also began to retreat one after another. On the left side of the space, a few Emperor-level Undying stepped out of the space, their expressions extremely solemn. From the back of an abandoned planet in front of them, a large battleship with a diameter of 100,000 meters sailed out, surrounded by hundreds of medium-sized battleships each with a diameter of 10,000 meters, these undying emperors were the upper echelons of this scouting team. They were originally scouting this star field and unexpectedly witnessed the entire process of the Human Federation's powerful reinforcements descending in a domineering manner. When they thought about how the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, and the Human Federation of the 5 alliances had skyrocketed in strength, leaving only the alliance of the survivors and the alliance of the ferocious beasts, these immortal emperors' hearts sank to the extreme. Instinctively, they turned to look at a corner of the chaos fragment in front of them at the same time. Over 100 ferocious beasts were rushing out from the back of another giant abandoned planet, their bodies exuding a heavy aura. This was a scout team from the Ferocious Beasts Alliance, led by 2 ferocious beast commanders who were both immortal emperors. At this moment, they rushed out from the back of the abandoned planet where they had been hiding. They originally wanted to return to the Ferocious Beasts Alliance immediately and report the shocking scene they had just witnessed to the leaders of the Ferocious Beasts Alliance. Suddenly, the 2 ferocious beast emperors seemed to have sensed the gazes of these immortal emperors, and they subconsciously turned to look at them. The moment their gazes met, both parties saw a touch of heaviness and worry in each other's eyes. Ferocious beasts and the survivors had always been mortal enemies in this chaos fragment void. But now, perhaps because they were in the same situation and were similarly isolated, the moment their gazes met, the 2 ferocious beast emperors and the leaders of the survivor scouts felt a sense of sympathy for each other. Roar. Retracting their gazes, the 2 ferocious beast emperors lowered their heads and roared in shame. They did not stay any longer and immediately left with the hundreds of ferocious beasts behind them. Sigh. On this side, the few immortal emperors of the survivor scouts exchanged glances with a desolate expression. At the same time, they shook their heads and sighed. They did not stay any longer. With a flash of their bodies, they leaped into the large battleship that was slowly approaching them. After that, they led the survivor scouts and quickly left, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Chapter 4791. In less than 3 months, the void of the fragment of the untainted land, which had been quiet for only 2 years, was stirred up again, and undercurrents were surging again. As for the Magic Hall, the army of all evil joined in and became the 5th army under the Magic Hall, increasing the overall strength of the Magic Hall once again. Although this attracted the attention of all parties, the most shocking thing was the Star Alliance, the alliance of all races, and the Human Federation, which were now outside of the Magic Hall. Originally, the 5 alliances together were no match for the Magic Hall. In one battle, the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 ghastly demon crocodile, the 9-headed blood dragon, and the azure sky rock were all defeated and fled. But now, any one of the 3 alliances had the strength and qualifications to fight against the Magic Hall. First of all, the Star Alliance had the blood dragon, the azure sky rock, and the battle lion clan moving in. The alliance's military strength had increased by 20 billion battleships and 25 primordial great beings, as well as the bloodthirsty war lion which could reach the 7th level of desolate supremacy under its secret technique. Once the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock returned, they would instantly have 3 primordial great beings and 25 primordial great beings. The alliance of all races was even more powerful. The space rats, hell ants, giant ferocious, and slime demons had also moved in. The alliance's military strength had increased by 40 billion battleships. Furthermore, there were 24 late-stage primordial great beings and 4 mid-stage primordial great beings. Overall, the alliance's overall strength had surpassed that of the Star Alliance. Even without the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9 ghastly demon crocodile, they could still compete with the Magic Hall. However, the Human Federation was even more powerful. With the arrival of the immortal 9 stars, the Sky Extinction Palace, and the Temple of Glory, whether compared to the Star Alliance, the alliance of all races, or the Magic Hall and the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, the Human Federation was practically the strongest. Aside from the tens of billions of battleships, there were 36 supreme beings, 36 primordial great beings, and even 6 supreme primordial great beings. In addition to D-Air, who had just broken through to the desolate supremacy realm, the Human Federation had a total of 7 desolate supremacies. Both the Star Alliance and the alliance of 10,000 races had the strength to contend with the Magic Hall, but they didn't have much of a chance of winning. Therefore, if the Human Federation started a war with the Magic Hall, even if Yi Xian, who had disappeared after the battle 2 years ago, appeared again and joined forces with the master of the Magic Hall, the Human Federation, and the Human Federation would only have a 50-50 chance of winning. Of course, a full-scale war of this magnitude wouldn't break out so easily. But for the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, and the Human Federation, even if they weren't going to war anytime soon, they had to declare their independence from the Magic Hall. 3 days after the Human Federation's reinforcements arrived, a legion of fortresses sailed out of the star field. 3 figures rushed out of the flagship in the center. All 3 of them were primordial great beings. 2 of them were humans, and 1 of them was an old man with a feral presence. Of the 2 humans, 1 was the neverless emperor of the human race's technology faction, while the other was Zhu Wutian, lord of the sky and palace. As for the other old man whose body was emanating the scent of a feral, he was the cardinal of the Temple of Glory, named Shixiahong. Although the Human Federation now had 7 supreme primordial great beings, beings of this level usually wouldn't care about the affairs of the Federation, and wouldn't show themselves easily. They had more important matters to attend to, such as matters related to the awakening of the slumbering ancestors of their race. Therefore, the Human Federation was now led by these 3 supreme primordial great beings. As for D-Air, he mysteriously disappeared after the arrival of the Neverwither Emperor. He wasn't just the Grand Tutor of the Neverwither dynasty, but also the leader of the automaton race. Before the arrival of the Neverwither Emperor, he had no choice but to preside over the Human Federation and lead everything. Now that he could free himself, he naturally had to take care of the affairs of the machinery race. After all, the void fragment of the primordial world had changed abruptly. This was very likely a sign that the end of the primordial world was coming. Therefore, the machinery race also needed to be properly arranged, and now, with the appearance of the 3 supreme primordial great beings, Zhu Wutian, and Qi Xiaohong, the various factions and scouts of the Alliance who had been lying in wait at the edge of the planetary system were at once invigorated. Soon, the divine senses of the 3 supreme primordial great beings reached them one after another, echoing throughout the void. I am Zhu Wutian, master of the Sky Extinction Palace, and Qi Xiaohong, master of the Temple of Glory. Today, I lead the Human Federation and represent the Federation in declaring that I am no longer associated with the Magic Hall. I hope that the master of the Magic Hall would have some self-respect and not make a mistake. Boom. Rumble. With that, the 3 supreme primordial great beings turned around and rushed into the flagship fortress behind them. The entire army immediately turned around and rumbled back to the Human Federation. At the same time, several figures rushed out of the planetary system occupied by the Federation. These were 4 powerful primordial great beings, and they were the current leaders of the Space Rat, Infernal Ant, Giant Ferocious, and Evil Spirit Slime. As for the 4 supreme primordial great beings who had awakened from their slumber, they didn't show up either. Around the edges of the planetary system, there were also scouts of various factions and races waiting. When they saw the appearance of the 4 supreme primordial great beings, they seemed to realize something and all of them perked up. I am the leader of the Space Rat, Infernal Ant, Giant Ferocious, and Evil Spirit Slime. Today, on behalf of the Alliance, I declare that from this moment on, the Alliance is no longer associated with the Magic Hall. The same scene played out in the planetary system occupied by the Star Alliance. However, the situation here was different from that of the Human Federation and the Alliance. The supreme primordial great beings of the Human Federation and the Alliance didn't show up. However, the 3 supreme primordial great beings of the Star Alliance showed up at the same time. Moreover, they didn't even come from inside the planetary system, but from a distant place outside the planetary system. At the forefront was the blood-devouring lion, whose aura was fierce and tyrannical. Although he was only a rank 7 supreme primordial great being, no one dared to treat him as a supreme primordial great being. This could be seen from the fact that even the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock, who were both rank 1 desolate great beings, were following behind the blood-devouring lion. After 2 years, the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock had fully recovered from their injuries, but their expressions were gloomy. As desolate great beings, they had been beaten twice by the master of the Magic Hall and Yi Xian, the master of the Sky River Star, and had to flee. This kind of humiliation was so deep that they would never be able to raise their heads again until they were cleansed. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why the nine-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock showed up in person this time. Of course, another reason was that all the clansmen and armies of the Blood Serpent, Azure Rock, and Battle Lion clans had been captured by the Demon Hall in this fragment of space. They had formed an army of captives. Now that the blood-devouring lion, the ancestor of the Battle Lion clan, had arrived, it would be a joke if they didn't show their attitude. Chapter 4792. Roar. Roar, roar. Sedan-devouring mad lion brought the nine-headed blood dragon and the cyan rock back to the edge of the star field where the Star Alliance was located. They scanned the surroundings with their godly consciousness and found a large number of scouts from other powers and races lurking in the distance. They immediately roared. As the ancestors of their races and supreme beings of the primordial era, they would not lower themselves to quarrel with scouts from other races and powers. Instead, they took advantage of this opportunity to announce the independence of the Star Alliance. After each of them let out a heaven-shaking roar, the three of them immediately sent out their divine senses. The divine senses enveloped the entire area, causing the surrounding space to tremble slightly, revealing an endless amount of coldness. From now on, the Star Alliance will be separated from the Magic Hall. As for the people of the Blood Dragon, the Cyan Rock, and the Battle Lion race and the battleship army captured by the Magic Hall, we urge the Master of the Magic Hall to release them as soon as possible, otherwise, we will start a war. Roar, deep in the star field occupied by the Survivors Alliance, in a giant cyan life star. This giant cyan life star was where the headquarters of the Survivors Alliance was located. In the eastern part of the star, there was a towering mountain facing the sea, and there was a palace at the peak of the mountain. This was the headquarters of the Survivors Alliance. Now, in the palace, there were more than 200 figures, all of whom were Universe Knights or above. More than half of them were Universe Knights, more than 100 of them were Universe Masters, more than 40 Universe Masters, and 24 Universe Supremes. Besides them, there were 4 great beings of the primordial era. As for the supreme beings of the primordial era, there was none. Such a high-level battle force was a little shabby compared to the Star Alliance, the alliance of myriad races, and the Human Federation. Therefore, at this moment, in the hall of the Alliance headquarters, a group of senior executives of the Survivors Alliance who were attending the meeting had a rather worried and awkward expression on their faces. Among the 4 great beings in the palace, 3 of them were at the middle stage of the primordial era. The 2 of them had just woken up recently and did not participate in the previous battle of the Magic Hall. The other one was the one who led the army of the Survivors Alliance and the other 4 alliances 2 years ago. 31, the old man who tried to force the Magic Hall to abdicate. At that time, his cultivation was at the 7th stage of the Desolation era. He was brutally beaten up by Yi Xian and rewarded with a large amount of purple gold and 9-colored divine herbs. After returning, the black-robed Almighty immediately went into seclusion and had just come out. Although he had only been in seclusion for 2 years, his cultivation level had successfully climbed from the Desolate Antiquity rank 7 to the current Great Perfection rank 9, which was the half-step Desolate Venerable. With such a terrifying speed, even the higher-ups present were shocked and puzzled, but they didn't dare to ask. The strength of the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, and the Human Federation has skyrocketed. A few days ago, they announced their withdrawal from the Magic Hall. The 3 Baron Supremes of the Star Alliance even threatened to start another war. Turning his head, the black-robed Almighty glanced at the hundreds of higher-ups in the hall and paused. After a short while, he sighed and continued, "Now, all the big and small forces and races in the void fragment of the untainted land, including the Magic Hall, I'm afraid that they have set their eyes on us and the Beast Alliance. After all, in the previous war, the 5 alliances joined hands to force the Magic Hall to abdicate. In the end, they all became the subordinates of the Magic Hall. Now, 3 of the 5 alliances have expressed their withdrawal from the Magic Hall. Naturally, the Survivors Alliance and the Beast Alliance have become the focus of attention. This is clearly the rhythm of being roasted on the fire." Speaking of this, the black-robed Almighty sighed faintly and looked at the crowd again. "Everyone, what do you think about this matter?" The higher-ups in the hall looked at each other bitterly. Finally, their eyes all converged on the other 3 powerful figures in the middle of the hall. In the whole hall, there were only 4 powerful figures from the remote antiquity. Now, when the black-robed Almighty asked the question, the others didn't dare to speak. Only the three powerful figures in the middle of the hall were qualified to express their opinions. The three of them frowned at the same time and looked very serious. They turned their heads and exchanged glances. Then they sighed slightly and expressed their opinions one after another. The current situation of the survivors' tribe is very awkward. Even in the holy land of the tribe, there are not many powerful figures and desolate masters who are sleeping. There are less than 10 powerful figures and only 2 desolate masters. None of those fellows from the 3 main starry skies are good people. This can be seen from the battle 2 years ago. As the 4 desolate supremacies with the strongest battle strength in the allied forces, they actually turned around and fled after being tortured. They did not even care about the countless subordinates in the allied forces. This kind of shameless person really can't be plotted with. That group of fellows from the 3 main starry skies is not a good person. This point can be seen from the battle 2 years ago. As the 4 desolate supremacies with the strongest battle strength in the allied forces, they actually turned around and fled after being tortured. They did not even care about the countless subordinates in the allied forces. It's a pity that we haven't found the passage to the Hong Meng Void yet. Otherwise, the survivors' tribe can all enter the Hong Meng Void and jump out of this circle of trouble. Even if we can only contact those seniors who have gone to the primordial void, we wouldn't be in such a dejected state like we are now if 7 or 8 desolate venerables from the primordial void came. In my opinion, the Survivors Alliance should not participate in this matter for the time being. We should keep silent and wait to see what happens. Yes, this is the safest way to deal with it. With the current strength of the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Races and the Human Federation, especially this time when the Star Alliance threatened the Magic Hall, I'm afraid that the violent ape will not let it go. If there is no accident, the war between the 3 alliances and the Magic Hall will start again soon. At that time, whether it is the Magic Hall or the envoys of the 3 alliances, we can politely refuse any request on the grounds that the powerful figures of the alliance are all in closed-door training and can't make decisions. After the war is over, we will look at the final result and make a decision. This is indeed the safest way at present. Hearing this, the powerful figure in the black robe frowned. He turned his head and glanced at the other 3 powerful figures of the middle stage remnant on his left and right sides. His eyes revealed deep meaning. But he didn't reject their proposal. Halfway through, he paused slightly and then continued, "So, the Survivors Alliance will keep silent for the time being. I can take advantage of this time to go into closed-door training again. If there is no accident, I will be able to smoothly break through to the First Order Primordial Master in the near future. If this goes well, I will announce an important decision at that time." Upon hearing this, the hundreds of high-level officials of the Survivors Alliance in the hall were startled. Then, all of them were horrified and gasps resounded throughout the hall. The Lord in the black robe broke through 2 levels in just 2 years and became a half-step desolate master. Now, he was going to go into closed-door training and claim that he would be able to enter the First Order Primordial Master in a short time. To them, such words were simply a fantasy. It was too unbelievable. Chapter 4793. The Beast Alliance. Just like the Survivors Alliance, the vast star field occupied by the Beast Alliance was now shrouded in a cloud of gloom and fog. News about the arrival of reinforcements from the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Races, and the Human Federation had already spread to every corner of the Star Alliance several days ago, and their strength had skyrocketed to the point where they could challenge the Demon Hall. Since then, the ferocious beasts in the countless inhabited stars in the entire expanse of the starry sky had become inexplicably uneasy. Low and deep roars could be heard from time to time, and they revealed boundless bewilderment and exhaustion. Since the war 2 years ago, the 5 great alliances had basically faced the same situation. They were all extremely embarrassed and could only submit to the supreme power of the Magic Hall, as if they were struggling at death's door. If everyone was like this for a long time, they would slowly get used to it. Even if they were unwilling, they wouldn't have the ability to resist and wouldn't dream about it. But now, among the 5 great alliances, the Star Alliance, the Myriad Races Alliance, and the Human Federation suddenly had the situation reversed. Overnight, they had the foundation and strength to challenge the Magic Hall. Such a scene, for the Beast Alliance, was really caught off guard and found it hard to accept. Now, the three great alliances that had joined forces to force the Magic Hall to abdicate had successively announced that they were leaving the Magic Hall. Of the 5 great alliances, only the Survivors Alliance and the Beast Alliance were left. They were the focus of attention from all parties, almost becoming the focus of countless eyes. This situation was tantamount to putting them on a rack to roast, which really made people restless. Now, of the 5 great alliances that had joined forces to force the Magic Hall to abdicate, the other 3 had come ashore and escaped from the sea of bitterness. Only the Survivors Alliance and the Beast Alliance were still struggling in the sea of bitterness. In fact, in the war 2 years ago, although the Survivors Alliance was finally forced to submit to the Magic Hall, in fact, the Beast Alliance was even more miserable than them. At that time, the Survivors Alliance's 7th-stage black-robed powerhouse was beaten up and lost his face, but at least he kept his life and immediately withdrew with the entire army of the Survivors Alliance. But the Beast Alliance was different. Although they also had a 7th-stage powerhouse, the Beast Ancestor, who had to pay a heavy price to activate the secret bloodline technique and forcibly raise his strength to the supreme stage of the ancients, but in the end, he was still blown up by the Sky River Star's master, Yi Xian. After the war, the Beast Alliance even paid a huge amount of compensation. Yi Xian's entire army was disgraced and the Beast Alliance was forced to flee back to their base camp in embarrassment. It could be said that the ferocious Beast Alliance and the Human Federation suffered the most in that battle. They lost more than one of their high-end combat forces above the realm of mighty figure. Now, the Human Federation had risen again, and in this void fragment of the universe, they even had the confidence and strength to surpass the Magic Hall. But on the side of the Beast Alliance, there was still no supreme stage of the ancients. When they fled back to their base camp from the Magic Hall, there were only a dozen Universe Supremes left in the entire Beast Alliance, including the higher-ups who stayed behind to guard the base camp. Over the past 2 years, the Universe Supremes of the Beast Alliance had gritted their teeth and successively awakened another 9 Supreme Stage of the Ancients from their ancestral land. But they still couldn't compete with the Magic Hall. So, they didn't dare to make a public announcement. These 9 Supreme Stage ferocious beasts who had been awakened didn't even go out to show their faces. They had been holed up in the depths of the star sector occupied by the Beast Alliance. Originally, these 9 Supreme Stage ferocious beasts had planned to remain dormant and quietly wait for the Supreme Stage of the ferocious beasts in the depths of the ancestral land to wake up one by one. But now, the situation had suddenly changed, and this kind of countermeasure was obviously no longer appropriate. The 3 alliances announced their withdrawal from the Magic Hall in a short period of time. Among them, the Star Alliance even threatened the master of the Magic Hall, saying that with the temper of the ferocious ape, a war would most likely break out soon. When that time came, whether it was the Magic Hall or the 3 alliances, which had greatly increased their strength, would definitely send envoys to the Survivors Alliance and the Beast Alliance. Now, both sides were in high spirits. The Beast Alliance didn't know how the Survivors Alliance would deal with it, but on their side, they obviously couldn't and didn't dare to offend either side. In such a large alliance, there wasn't even a single supreme stage of the combat power. No matter what they did, they didn't have the confidence, and no matter what choice they made, they were destined to be bullied by their powerful allies. The only way to change this situation was to make themselves stronger. So, these 9 Supreme Stage ferocious beasts finally made the decision to go to the ancestral land in the depths of the star sector and awaken the Supreme Stage of the ferocious beasts in the ancestral land. Even if there were only 1 or 2 Supreme Stage ferocious beasts, at least there would be top-level combat power that could hold up the fort. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. After making the decision, the 9 Supreme Stage ferocious beasts, who had agreed to meet to discuss everything, set off at once. Their figures turned into streaks of light and shot toward the depths of the star sector. This star sector was originally a top-level forbidden area, and the one who guarded it was an ancient Supreme Stage ferocious beasts. Unfortunately, since the major races and forces of the 3 main dimensions of the starry skies, as well as the Magic Hall of the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, that Supreme Stage ferocious beasts had fallen. Later, when the various ferocious beasts' forbidden areas in this star sector decided to join forces and establish the Beast Alliance, the reason why the headquarters of the Alliance was chosen here was because there was an unknown ferocious beast holy land in the deepest part of this star sector. The outside world didn't know about this matter at all. Even the higher-ups of the survivors' star sector, who had always been mortal enemies with the ferocious beasts, didn't know about it. Even among the various ferocious beasts' forbidden areas in this star sector, only a few of the higher-ups of the strongest forbidden areas knew about this matter. It was said that the bloodline ancestors of the various ferocious beasts' forbidden areas in this star sector had all gone to the primordial void countless years ago. However, at that time, in order to preserve their bloodline, some of the ancient ferocious beasts' ancestors had stayed behind and opened up an independent void similar to a blessed land and a paradise, and then entered it to hibernate. This independent void was in the deepest part of the galaxy occupied by the Ferocious Beast Alliance. The 9 ferocious beast almighties guarding the Ferocious Beast Alliance had been awakened one after another in the past 2 years. Therefore, no one knew better than them how many ferocious beast almighties and ferocious beast desolate venerables were still in hibernation in this independent void. And now, these 9 supreme stage ferocious beasts had gone to this mysterious independent void with the sole purpose of awakening 1 or 2 supreme stage ferocious beasts' ancestors. In this way, even if they couldn't compete with the Magic Hall or the 3 independent alliances, they could at least ensure that the Beast Alliance wouldn't be wantonly suppressed by the Magic Hall and the 3 alliances. This way, they could relax and quietly wait for all the Supreme Stage Ferocious Beasts and Desolate Supreme Stage Ferocious Beasts hibernating in the Independent Void to fully awaken in the future. Chapter 4794. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, a faint whistling sound rang out. 9 rays of light blasted over from a distance. In the blink of an eye, they stopped abruptly in the void one after another. They were 9 ferocious space beasts, all of which were about 100,000 feet in size, but they were of different races. These 9 ferocious beasts were the strongest in the Ferocious Beast Alliance, the 9 ferocious beasts. They had now arrived at their destination. As their figures stopped abruptly, their eyes flashed as they looked at the void in front of them at the same time. There, in the void about 100 million miles away, there was a light gray light cluster that looked about the same size as an ordinary star. It was quietly standing there like a gray black hole. It was actually just a void passage that was jointly opened by some ancient desolate supremacies of the ferocious beasts. It had always been standing there, unremarkable, but it was the holy land of all the ferocious beasts in this chaotic world fragment void. Swoosh. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, boom. The 9 ferocious beasts lined up around the light gray light cluster. Without any hesitation, they acted immediately. There was a thin crack in between their eyebrows. 9 light beams of different colors shot out from it, bringing a whistling sound in the void. These light beams were the bloodline light beams formed by the 9 ferocious beasts burning their soul blood. At this moment, they shot out and gathered together in the blink of an eye, forming a larger and more dazzling light beam. In a flash, they rushed into the light gray light cluster, and there was no more sound. Outside the light cluster, the 9 ferocious beasts were not in a hurry. After they gathered the light beams that contained their bloodline aura and shot them into the light cluster channel, they waited quietly. At the same time, he was secretly guessing which existence would awaken from his deep slumber this time around. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, a day had passed. However, these 9 ferocious beasts were not impatient at all. They were still very quiet because they were awakened in this way. No one knew better than them about everything. In fact, if there were no accidents, in the independent cave on the other side of the light cluster channel, there should be 1 or 2 desolate supremacies that had awakened. However, after sleeping for such a long time, even if their consciousness returned, they would still need a certain amount of buffer time. The full recovery after a long period of sleep was originally a gradual process. If they were too anxious, it would not be good for them. There was a hidden danger. Roar. Roar, another day had passed. Finally, there was movement in the gray light cluster. 2 roars came one after another. It was clear that they did not belong to the same existence, but the aura revealed was the supreme desolate supremacy realm. The 9 ferocious beasts waiting outside the gray light cluster were stunned at the same time, then their faces showed a joyful expression, and they cried out softly, 9 desolate supremacies. The 9 desolate supremacies. Desolate supremacies. The two desolate supremacies have awakened and are about to descend. My ferocious beast federation will finally not have to endure that vexation anymore. At least we can protect ourselves. Listening to the movement, this time it seems to be the wolf supremacy and the insect supremacy who have awakened. These are two 7th-order late-stage desolate supremacies. They are definitely not to be underestimated. Shio shio, roar. As the soft roar sounded, from the gray light cluster in front of them, 2 light rays shot out in an instant and landed in the void between the 9 ferocious beasts. They were a silver wolf and an insect that looked somewhat similar to a rhinoceros beetle. They must be the wolf supremacy and the insect supremacy that the 9 ferocious beasts had just mentioned. At this moment, the wolf supremacy and the insect supremacy of the Fern Beast Alliance had awakened and rushed out of the independent cave. Although their bodies were not huge, and they did not show their bloodline true form, only about 10,000 feet tall, the cultivation aura that emanated from their bodies was extremely terrifying. Without exception, both of them were late 7th-order supreme desolate supremacies. They were stronger than the Crimson Unicorn and the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile. Why did you wake us up? There are already 9 of you gathered here. Is there anything that you can't solve? At this moment, as they descended, the 2 desolate supremacies who had just been awakened swept their gazes across the 9 ferocious beasts in the surrounding void. The questioning voice was also transmitted, and there was a hint of displeasure in it. According to their original plan, this hibernation would only end at the moment when the Great Desolate Era fully descended. At that time, even if they could not reach the 9th-order desolate supremacy, it was still very possible for them to reach at least the 8th order. But now, because they were awakened early, their cultivation strength was only at the 7th order. It would be difficult for them to break through again. In this regard, the 9 ferocious beasts who had awakened the wolf supremacy and the insect supremacy were obviously well aware of this. At this moment, when they saw the other party directly asked about this matter as soon as they arrived, the 9 ferocious beasts felt embarrassed and shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Then, they used their divine sense to communicate. In just a few breaths, the complicated situation in this great desolate world fragment was roughly explained and explained. The master of the magic hall? Yi Xian, the heavenly river star master? Does he have such a powerful combat power? Even the scarlet unicorn and the 9 demon alligator are not his opponent? Strange, among the creatures of the Great Desolate Era, there were no such 2 existences. Could it be that they rose up in the later generations? How could they reach such a height? After understanding the situation clearly, the displeasure on the faces of the wolf supremacy and the insect supremacy disappeared. It was replaced by a touch of suspicion and confusion. They had been hibernating for countless years. Now that they had just woken up, they heard that 2 such powerful existences had risen in the later generations. In this great desolate world fragment, even the veteran desolate supremacy, the scarlet unicorn and the 9 demon alligator were not their opponents. The shock in their hearts was naturally imaginable. Huh? You just said that the heavenly river star master, Yi Xian, has a supreme treasure. Are there 9 black dragons pulling the one? As soon as they finished explaining the general situation, the 2 insect supremacies suddenly turned their heads and looked at the 9 ferocious beasts. Their eyes flashed as they asked. The 9 of them were stunned at the same time and nodded subconsciously. Their faces were also showing a confused look. It really is him. How dare he rampage at the edge of the Great Desolate Beast Alliance? He is really arrogant. After getting the answer, the insect supremacy's body was instantly filled with a monstrous murderous aura. Before he finished speaking, his figure flashed and disappeared in an instant. Looks like the heavenly river star lord, Yi Xian, that you guys were talking about, has come. Moreover, he doesn't seem to be very far away. Although that one carriage is a primordial treasure that can conceal its presence and avoid detection, the arachnids possess a unique bloodline talent that can't be hidden from him. Seeing that the insect supremacy had left, the wolf supremacy also turned his head and looked over. After saying that, his entire figure instantly turned into a faint light. In a flash, he rushed into the void and disappeared. This was clearly the rhythm of a battle that was about to break out. Everything happened so fast that the 9 ferocious beasts were completely caught off guard. They turned their heads in shock and exchanged glances with each other. Only then did they come back to their senses and followed. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4795. Whoosh! In the void, a black ray of light shot past at an extremely fast speed, just passing by the edge of the star field occupied by the Beast Alliance. This ray of light was the demon dragon's imperial carriage. However, Yi Xian was not in the Phoenix room. Only the 7 girls were there. They had just finished their seclusion and walked out of the forbidden land of sunrise, using the demon dragon's imperial carriage as a means of transportation. They wandered in this void to relax. Since they were here to relax, the 7 girls naturally adjusted the power of the demon dragon's domain. Although the curtain-like mist in the front yard of the demon dragon's domain had already been lowered, it didn't completely cut off the area. Even looking from the outside, one could vaguely see the scene inside, but it was hazy and charming. Rumble! Right at this moment, an earth-shattering sound suddenly came from the void. In front of the void where the demonic dragon imperial chariot was flying, a huge crack opened. From within, a space bug clan member with long tentacles darted out, looking extremely ferocious. Its body was originally only about 100,000 feet long, but the moment it rushed out of the crack, it instantly expanded. In less than half a breath of time, this space insect race was already as big as a star. Compared to him, the demon dragon imperial carriage was actually not that big. It was too eye-catching. At this moment, such a huge space bug suddenly rushed out in front of them. The 7 girls reacted immediately, and the demon dragon's imperial carriage came to an abrupt stop in the void. Immediately after, a soft cry of surprise came from the front yard of the Phoenix room. Supreme Primordial? It's actually at the late stage of the 7th order. This is troublesome. Damn bug, this sovereign hates bugs the most, but this time I met such a big one, and I can't beat it. It's really infuriating. Boom. Rumble! Before the 7 girls' soft cries of resentment could be heard, an earth-shattering roar came from the left side of the Beast Alliance's star field. Turning his head to look, he saw a huge silver wolf the size of a star pouncing towards him at a high speed. Behind the silver wolf were 9 other beasts of different bloodlines, all of which were mighty figures of the primordial era. As for the silver wolf's cultivation level, it was the same as the space bug tribe that appeared first. It had reached the Supreme Desolate Realm, and it was at the 7th rank of the Supreme Desolate Realm. It was a powerful late-stage Desolate Venerable. In the blink of an eye, another late-stage 7th rank Desolate Supremacy had arrived. Other than that, there were 9 other Desolate Primordial Great Figure ferocious beasts like them. In the blink of an eye, 11 figures had already formed an encirclement around the demonic dragon chariot that had stopped abruptly in midair. This was clearly the rhythm of their attack. The expressions of the 7 maidservants had already changed. Amidst the thick resentment that could not be dispersed, there was also a faint trace of worry. Now, the 7 of them had recovered to the peak of their cultivation in their previous lives, which was the Desolate Antiquity Great Perfection Stage 9, or half-step Desolate Supremacy. Although he was only a half-step Desolate Venerable, the 7 sisters had a tacit understanding of each other. If they were to fight together, even a true primordial sovereign might not be able to do anything to them. But this only referred to the early-stage Desolate Supremacy. But now, among the 11 huge figures that surrounded the demonic dragon chariot in the distance, there were actually 2 primordial sovereigns, and they were both late-stage 7th-rank Desolate Supremacies. With such powerful strength, even if the 7 sisters and the 9 powerful demonic dragons were to join forces, they would not be able to shake either of the 2 late-stage Desolate Supremacies. In the face of such a situation, escaping was the only choice. No matter how unwilling they were, there was nothing they could do. Thinking of this, the corpse ancestor Hitorigami immediately moved. The demonic dragon chariot that was originally motionless in midair turned into a ray of light in the blink of an eye and rushed to the right side of the space. There were 2 mighty figures that were guarding in the distance. The defense line was relatively weak, and it was the best place to break through. Roar! Screech! Seeing that they were treated as soft persimmons by the other party, the 2 mighty figures that were blocking in front of them were instantly furious. They raised their heads and roared. The aura in their body instantly surged to the extreme. It was clear that they were going to block with all their strength. You can't escape. At this time, an incomparably arrogant voice suddenly sounded in the void, revealing endless disdain. Buzz. As this voice sounded, in another direction in the distance, the two long antennae on the forehead of the huge space bug clan that was like a star suddenly trembled violently. With the appearance of the tremor, there was a low buzzing sound that was so high that it was terrifying. At this moment, ripples that were as fine as scales appeared in the vast expanse of space within a radius of 10 billion kilometers. It was like a pool of still water that was suddenly wrinkled by a gentle breeze. This was clearly due to some kind of bloodline talent of the insect lord. Although it did not completely seal off the void, it affected its structure. The direct result of this was that the demonic dragon chariot, which was originally shooting forward at an extremely fast speed, suddenly slowed down. Furthermore, it slowed down to a point that made one's hair stand on end. It was like a cheetah that had suddenly charged into a quagmire. It was trapped deep in the quagmire and couldn't move at all. This insect is not simple. It has mastered the extremely strong power of the space law. The void within a radius of 10 billion miles is affected by the power he used. It is impossible to escape now. Seeing this scene, corpse ancestor Hitorigami's face instantly turned gloomy. As she whispered, she once again changed the power of the demonic dragon chariot's domain. The only thing we can do now is to be trapped here and wait for Master to rescue us. Fortunately, the Imperial Chariot is a remote ancient supreme. In addition to the extreme luxury, the most important thing is defense. Although these two Seven Empress Desolate Sovereigns are powerful, even if they join forces, it will take at least a day to break through the Imperial Chariot's power domain. Speaking up to this point, her words paused as a helpless expression appeared on her face. She shook her head and bitterly smiled. I hope Master can make it in time. Otherwise, I'm afraid we seven sisters will be in trouble again this time. Swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As soon as corpse ancestor Hitorigami's voice fell, there was a faint sound of breaking through the air. The 11 high-level beasts of the Beast Alliance were approaching, and there was even a voice of divine sense. Huh? There are only 7 girls? Where is the Sky River Star Lord Yi Xian? Get out here, I will meet him. These words came from the wolf sovereign on the right side of the void. At this moment, as the figure approached about 100 million miles, the 11 figures came to an abrupt halt again at the same time. Then, the wolf sovereign, whose body was like a star, suddenly opened his bloody mouth. A lightning-like crescent moon slashed out at an extreme speed that was almost faster than the speed of light. This is just a warning. If you don't show yourself in 10 breaths, I will tear apart your chariot. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4796. The Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun, inside the Magic Hall. Yi Xian hadn't been in seclusion recently because he hadn't fully assimilated the gains from his last breakthrough into his body and soul. Although his state of mind was strong, it wasn't time for him to enter seclusion again. Unless there was another earth-shattering battle, the demonic hall had already ruled the world in this fragment of the primordial world. Even the blood-colored Qilin, the 9 netherworld demon crocodile, the 9-headed blood flood dragon, and the azure sky rock were hiding and did not dare to show their faces. As for the others, it could be said that although this great desolate world fragment was vast and boundless, it wasn't an easy task for Yi Xian to find an opponent to have a good battle with. Perhaps this was the feeling of being lonely at the top. Just as Yi Xian was sighing with emotion, the void of this great desolate world fragment suddenly started to change. The 5 great alliances that had originally submitted to the Demon Palace actually announced their withdrawal in a short span of a month, leaving them alone. It stood. On the Star Alliance's side, the Blood Dragon, the Azure Rock, and the Battle Lion all moved over. The Alliance's military strength increased by 20 billion battleships, 25 primordial beings, and the blood-devouring lion that could reach the 7th-rank desolate supremacy under its secret technique. With the return of the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, their combined strength increased by leaps and bounds. As for the alliance of 10,000 races, the space rats, the hell ants, the giant ferocious, and the evil slime all moved over. The alliance's military strength increased by 40 billion battleships, 24 late-stage primordial beings, and 4 mid-stage primordial beings. Even Yi Xian couldn't help but be a little speechless at this kind of strength. As expected of an ancient race, they had a rich foundation. 4 primordial beings had arrived. What really shocked him was the human federation. The immortal 9 stars, the Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory had all arrived at the same time. Aside from the tens of billions of battleships, there were 36 supreme beings, 36 primordial beings, and even 6 primordial beings. In addition to D-Air, who had just broken through to the Desolate Supremacy realm, the Human Federation had a total of 7 Desolate Supremacies. Compared to the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 races, and the Magic Hall of the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun, it was a one-sided affair. It could even be said that even the Magic Hall was no match for the Human Federation. This sudden turn of events caught Yi Xian off guard. Not long ago, he had lamented that it was so difficult to find someone to fight a good fight with. But now, there were more than a dozen supreme masters of the remote antiquity in the void of the fragment of the untainted land. Any one of them had the qualifications to fight him head-on. For a moment, Yi Xian couldn't even decide who to attack first. But then, he suddenly felt a throbbing in his heart. It was the presence of the demon dragon, a primordial treasure that had already been refined by Yi Xian. If there was any unusual movement, with Yi Xian's current cultivation base and strength, as long as they were in the same universe, inside, he could instantly sense it. In that instant, his expression changed abruptly. It was extremely gloomy, and his words were extremely cold. The Beast Alliance? How dare you attack my imperial carriage? I don't know who to attack first. Since you're here to die, I'll grant you your wish. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian's figure flashed, and with a faint sound of breaking air, he disappeared, at the edge of the Beast Alliance's planetary system. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The wolf sovereign, whose body was as large as a star, suddenly opened his bloody maw. A lightning-fast crescent moon slashed out at an extreme speed that was almost faster than the speed of light, heading straight for the besieged demonic dragon imperial carriage. At the same time, his voice came out, "This is just a warning. If you don't show yourself within 10 breaths, this sovereign will tear down your imperial carriage." Boom! The dignified late-stage desolate sovereign actually took advantage of fellow Ye's absence to bully his retinue, and even said that he would tear down his imperial carriage. You have such big words. Have you asked this, Lord? Just as the wolf sovereign's voice fell, a shocking explosion suddenly came from the void not far behind him. Then, a voice that was clearly filled with laziness came out. There was not even a crack in the void, but the figure of the master of the magic hall strangely appeared out of thin air. Moreover, it was clearly in its complete state. Its body was 60 million miles long, which was bigger than the wolf sovereign and the insect sovereign, which were the size of stars. 2 circles. Bang! Almost at the same time as the figure appeared, Yi Xian did not hesitate to attack. He punched out diagonally and hit the wolf sovereign's right rib. In an instant, his terrifying figure, which was like a star, was sent flying backwards. In the void, there seemed to be a faint groan. It was obvious that although this punch did not seriously injure him, he was definitely not much better off. The current Yi Xian, under the 9th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, had reached the 7th order of the desolate ancient sovereign, which was equivalent to the wolf sovereign. However, if he were to add on the fact that the boundless energy and blood within his 60 million kilometer body would increase his cultivation by 1 level, then his peak combat strength would be comparable to that of a desolate sovereign of the 8th step. Yi Xian was originally determined to obtain this punch, and at the very least, he would be able to injure Lang Zun. However, the final result disappointed him. After all, the other party was an ancient late-stage desolate sovereign. Although he was caught off guard and did not dodge, the power within his body had already been mobilized. That was why, although he was sent flying, he was not seriously injured. You are quite resistant to beatings. Unfortunately, none of you can leave today, Walala. Turning his head and glancing in the direction where the wolf sovereign was sent flying backwards, Yi Xian's voice had just fallen when the sound of splashing water could be heard. The entire body of the violent ape collapsed in an instant, turning into a sea of blood that spread out, enveloping a corner of the universe. Roar. Roar. Screech. Immediately after, from 3 different directions of this vast sea of blood, shocking roars and whistling sounds rang out. In the midst of the shocking boundless sea of blood, in the blink of an eye, 3 huge figures rose from the ground in an instant. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient demonic ape. One was a body of flesh and blood, which was the star violent ape. One was a skeleton, without any flesh and blood, just a purple gold skeleton, exuding an endless murderous aura, incomparably ferocious. One was a body of black fog. Although it was also in the shape of a violent ape, its body was a black fog. Even its pair of eyes were only 2 purple lights, which looked extremely strange. In just a short breath, the 3 blood sea avatars had been condensed. And the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies were all at the 7th order of the desolate ancient sovereign. But in fact, the true combat strength of these 3 blood sea avatars, due to the support of the boundless vitality in the 60 million mile long body, had all reached the level of an 8th order desolate sovereign. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 4797. Roar. Roar. Screech. As the blood sea spread across the sky, the 3 blood sea clones raised their heads and roared at the same time. Their violent aura filled the sky, and the void trembled because of it. The expressions of the 9 ferocious beasts who had gathered around changed at once, and they subconsciously retreated hundreds of millions of miles away. This was a completely instinctive reaction. The Demon Hall Master's ferocious reputation was too resounding, and he had long left a shadow in their hearts. At this moment, when they saw the 3 blood sea clones appear, their sense of danger dropped sharply, and they retreated reflexively. At the same time, the Wolf Lord, who was sent flying by Yi Xian's punch, and the Insect Lord, who was hundreds of millions of miles away in another direction, had a drastic change in expression. Blood Sea secret technique? You've actually completely comprehended the power of the clones. What's your relationship with the Master of the Blood Sea? No, this is the Master of the Blood Sea's supreme secret technique. How could it be leaked so easily? But this person is clearly not the Master of the Blood Sea. His aura is too unfamiliar. What's going on? The Wolf Lord and the Insect Lord were like the Crimson Unicorn and the 9 Gloom Demon Crocodile. They were all existences that had lived from the beginning of the primordial era to the present. Therefore, they naturally saw through Yi Xian's Blood Sea secret technique at a glance. In the beginning of the primordial era, the Master of the Blood Sea was an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Void Tortoise, the Golden Divine Dragon, and the primordial Yiksha. He had once used this unique secret technique to dominate the world. However, they could not figure out how the Blood Sea secret technique of the Blood Sea secret technique had fallen into the hands of an outsider. It would have been fine if it was just the tip of the iceberg, but it was clear that the other party had completely comprehended it. Roar, if you want to fight, then fight. What's with the nonsense? Ignoring the other party's confusion, the cosmic violent ape immediately raised its head and let out a furious roar. Then, with a flip of its hand, the big-headed black cudgel appeared in its hand, and it was dragged by it as it charged toward the Insect Lord. I hate bugs the most in my life. Son, in today's battle, let's destroy them first. Screech. Almost at the same time, the skeleton avatar of the 3 blood sea avatars also raised its head and roared fiercely. A cold light flashed in its eyes. Its figure flashed, and it turned around and shot toward the Wolf Sovereign, who had just stabilized his body in the distance. A gloomy voice rang out at this moment, Big Wolf Dog, you are mine. Xiao. A faint whistling sound rang out, and the black mist doppelganger of the 3 blood sea doppelgangers instantly appeared behind Lord Insect without uttering a single word. It was clear that the skeleton avatar was going to temporarily stall the Wolf Lord, and then the flesh avatar and the black mist avatar would launch a pincer attack to kill the Insect Lord. I have to say, the idea is not bad. Realizing this, a look of disdain flashed across Insect Supremacy's eyes. His gaze swept across the approaching violent ape and black fog avatars in front and behind him. He sneered, unfortunately, even if all of you have battle strength that is comparable to an 8th-ranked Desolate Supremacy, and even if all of you join forces, besieging and killing me, but wanting to kill me is still a bit of a fantasy." At the end of his words, his tone changed, revealing a thick sense of ridicule. "Late-stage desolate supremacy is not so easy to kill, is that so?" In front, Violent Ape took over the conversation and sneered casually. However, the movements of his hands did not stop at all. The big-headed black stick that was originally behind him was instantly raised high, and like a spine of heaven and earth, it smashed towards insect supremacy's head. And one T/fall. This black stick is actually also a desolate ancient treasure? Seeing the big-headed black stick, insect supremacy was slightly shocked, but he quickly recovered. His figure shot to the left, and a mocking tone came out of his mouth. "Your battle strength is comparable to an 8th-rank desolate supremacy, and you even have a desolate ancient treasure level big black stick in your hand. The power of this blow is amazing. If it was a middle-stage desolate supremacy, it is very likely that he would have died here. Unfortunately, this sovereign is a late-stage 7th order, so dodging your attack is not difficult. No matter how terrifying the attack is, if it can't hit the target, it's just a joke in the end. Violent Ape, your ferocious power can only crush some low-level existences. Facing a late-stage desolate supremacy of the same cultivation level, you're only a so-so. What can you do to me?" Huff! Before he could finish speaking, a howling sound that sounded like the howling of a violent wind suddenly came from behind him. At this moment, the black mist avatar made its move. It did not attack the insect supremacy together with the Violent Ape. Instead, it waved its hand towards the left side of the insect supremacy. As he waved his hand, a 9-colored light that looked like a firefly shot out. Its speed was extremely fast, faster than lightning, and at the same time it shot out, it expanded explosively against the wind. In less than half a breath of time, this originally insignificant 9-colored light that was as small as a firefly had already evolved into a vast and boundless 9-colored sea of flames, completely sealing off the left side of the insect supremacy. Now, he could either stop abruptly and forcefully resist the big-headed black stick that was smashed down by the Violent Ape, or he could only continue to dodge sideways and crash into this 9-colored sea of flames with an astonishing aura. Without a doubt, this was a very difficult choice. For the insect supremacy, the only meaning of these two choices was to choose which method to use. To bury himself and disappear into thin air. Shinom 9-colored flame? That's impossible. Screech. Almost at the same time that this 9-colored sea of flames suddenly appeared in the void, the insect supremacy, who had a mocking smile on his face, instantly changed his expression. As his body shook violently, an incomparably shrill cry of alarm and ruthless howl came out of his mouth. At the same time, his huge body that was originally dodging to the left also came to an abrupt stop at this moment, barely stopping at the edge of the 9-colored sea of flames. This was his choice. As an ancient existence that had lived from the beginning of the ancient era to the present, the insect supremacy naturally understood the terror of the Shinom 9-colored flame. In his opinion, if he rushed into the 9-colored sea of flames like this, the result would definitely be death. However, if he stopped abruptly and forcefully resisted the big-headed black stick that was smashing down from above, although it would definitely be extremely miserable, it would probably only be a 9 out of 10 death. It was just life. No matter what. At least there was still a glimmer of hope. Do you want to ask for the last glimmer of hope? Unfortunately, you are thinking too much. As if he had guessed the other party's thoughts, at this moment, the corner of the Violent Ape's mouth slowly revealed a disdainful smile. At the same time, the big-headed black stick that was raised high in his right hand also used all his strength and instantly fell down. Bam! This explosion was earth-shattering. The insect supremacy's body did not move in the void at all. He did not even need to aim at all. He was smashed by the big-headed black stick that was falling down from above. In the blink of an eye, he exploded into a cloud of blood mist, which was swept up by the Violent Ape and absorbed into his body to begin the blood essence condensation. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 4798. Yi Xian's 3 avatars moved at the same time. The blood avatar temporarily held back the wolf sovereign, while the skeleton avatar and the black fog avatar attacked the insect sovereign from the front and back. One used the nine-colored flame sea to block the insect sovereign's path of retreat, while the other swung the big-headed black stick. With just one blow, the insect sovereign, who was caught off guard, had its head smashed open and died. All of this happened too quickly. No one could react in time. When the wolf sovereign, who had just clashed with the blood avatar, regained his senses, the insect sovereign's body had already exploded into a bloody mist. It was absorbed into Yi Xian's body and sent into the Shenong treasure cauldron to be refined by the blood essence. He already had a desolate supremacy blood essence in his hand, which he had obtained by accident. Now that he had killed the insect sovereign, he had obtained another desolate supremacy blood essence. The number of desolate supremacy blood essences in his hand had reached 2. Turning his head, the wolf sovereign, who had just clashed with the blood avatar, trembled violently. He could not believe what had just happened, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The 9 ferocious beasts, who had already retreated to the distance, trembled violently. Their expressions changed drastically as they cried out in shock. How is this possible? The insect sovereign was blown apart by a single blow? This is a late-stage rank 7 desolate supremacy. It has lived since the distant primordial era until now and has only just awakened. Hiss! What terrifying combat strength! The 3 Blood Sea avatars of the Magic Hall Master already have the combat strength of a rank 8 desolate supremacy. In addition, the big-headed black stick is a primordial supremacy. The insect sovereign was caught off guard and was killed. More importantly, the 9-colored flame sea. The insect sovereign could have dodged the big-headed black stick, but because of the 9-colored flame sea, it had no choice but to stop abruptly. Even the insect sovereign is afraid of the flame, not daring to touch it even at the risk of being smashed to death. What is it? It looks like... Heavens, that is the Shenong 9-colored flame, the heavenly flame of the primordial treasure Shenong treasure cauldron. It has already grown to the level of 9-colored flame. This is the precious flame of the earth that even a half-step heavenly Tao expert would be afraid of. What? Even the Shenong treasure cauldron is in his hands? What kind of monster is this? As cries of alarm rang out, the bodies of the 9 ferocious beasts trembled violently, and they subconsciously wanted to retreat again. Yi Xian's skeleton doppelganger and Black Mist doppelganger were about to charge at the wolf sovereign after killing the insect sovereign. With a thought, Yi Xian immediately issued a command. Screech! Screech! Ruthless, ruthless, ruthless. Almost in the next instant, 9 earth-shattering roars suddenly rang out from the area where the demonic dragon was situated in the distance up ahead. Just a moment ago, Yi Xian had activated the demon dragon chariot's inner defensive field with all his might. As a result, the 9 silent demon dragons suddenly moved. The 9 black dragons had already fallen countless years ago, but after being refined by Yi Xian and the 9 dragons' Azure One carriage into the Devil Dragon Imperial Chariot, they were basically puppet-like existences. As long as the Demon Dragon Imperial Chariot's inner field was activated, they could be activated like puppets and rush out to kill the enemy. Previously, Yi Xian was limited by his own cultivation base and was unable to display the true combat strength of these 9 demon dragons. But now, this problem no longer existed. As the earth-shattering roars rang out, the Luan carriage's shaft that was bound to their bodies instantly retracted. The 9 black dragons that were no longer bound instantly soared into the sky. Their bodies that were originally only 100 feet tall rapidly expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom! Rumble! The movement was so loud that the universe erupted with a rumbling sound. In less than half a breath, the 9 black dragons had already reached 100 million feet in size. Each of them raised their heads and roared, instantly spreading out in all directions. From the periphery, they sealed off an area. Immediately after, the corpse ancestor, drought demon, and the other 7 desolate ancient cultivators also soared into the sky. The 7 desolate ancient cultivators were the corpse ancestor drought demon, the corpse ancestor Ho Qing, the desolate electro lady, the mysterious maiden of the 9th heaven, the 9-tailed celestial fox, the celestial phoenix maiden, and the Zixia fairy. In the distant desolate era, they were once known as the 7 great desolate ancient cultivators and were famous for a time. Later, an unprecedented battle broke out in the desolate ancient era, and all 7 of them fell. Although they had been reborn for some time in this life, they had not shown their faces in the outside world. Even if they did, it was in the primordial void. What's more, after being reborn in this life, whether it was their appearance or aura, they were different from their previous life. Not to mention the wolf sovereign and the 9 ferocious beasts blocked by the 9 black dragons in the void, they had never seen them in the distant desolate ancient era. Even if they had seen them, they would definitely not recognize them now. In this life, they had just fully recovered their cultivation base to the peak of their previous life, reaching the great perfection of the 9th stage of the desolate ancient era. They wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to come out and relax, adjust their mentality, and then go back into seclusion to break through to the supreme desolate ancient realm. But now that they had encountered such an unlucky thing, it really made them feel suffocated and angry. Previously, because Yi Xian had not arrived, they knew that they were no match for him and did not want to be at a disadvantage, so they stayed in the demonic dragon imperial carriage and did not rush out. But now that Yi Xian had arrived, the 7 girls could no longer hold back. Almost at the same time when the demonic dragon imperial carriage was activated by Yi Xian and the 9 black dragons soared up, they had already rushed out of the carriage's vestibule. The 7 girls had a tacit understanding, and at this moment, rushed out of the carriage's vestibule and seemed to form an incomparably mysterious joint attack formation that was invulnerable. At the same time, an incomparably cold voice came out from their mouths as they rushed out and chased after the 9 ferocious beasts. Old fogies, weren't you all very arrogant just now? Now that we have come out, where do you all run to? There are 9 of you, and only 7 of us sisters. In this battle, you all have the advantage, so why are you so panicked? Is running useful? The 9 black dragons formed a formation and trapped you all around. If you are not a desolate supremacy, you will not be able to break through in an instant. This battle, you all have to fight, even if you don't want to. Screech. Screech. At the end of the sentence, the 7 girls raised their heads and roared at the same time. The half-step desolate supremacy cultivation of the 9th rank great perfection in their bodies was activated to the extreme in an instant. Waves of extremely ferocious oppressive aura swept out. In the blink of an eye, it gathered together and turned into a monstrous murderous aura that even the primordial supremacy would be shocked. It rushed towards the 9 ferocious beasts who had just been blocked by the formation formed by the 9 black dragons. It rumbled and crushed. Seeing this scene, the 9 ferocious beasts trembled violently. They turned their heads and looked at the 9 black dragons that had formed a formation in front of them, trapping them in this star field. They could not break through in a short period of time. After exchanging glances with each other, their eyes instantly burst out with a fierce light. Roar! Roar, roar, roar. In desperation, the 9 old fogies immediately raised their heads and roared. The chi and blood in their bodies were pushed to the extreme, and their bodies rapidly expanded. The expression on their faces instantly became extremely ferocious, revealing endless madness. Chapter 4799. Boom! Rumble, in the void, an earth-shattering roar sounded. The 7 primordial cultivators, including Hitorigami, Ho Qing, Desolate Electro Lady, Empyrean Maiden, 9-tailed Celestial Fox, Celestial Phoenix Maiden, and Xixia Fairy, were fighting against the 9 mighty ferocious beasts of the Beast Alliance. Although there were 9 mighty ferocious beasts, their cultivation levels were different. The strongest among them was only at the Great Perfection Stage 9 of the Primordial Era. However, the 7 primordial cultivators were all Great Perfection Stage 9 of the Primordial Era, or half-step desolate supremacies. Even if there were 2 fewer of them, they did not need the help of the 9 black dragons that were responsible for sealing this corner of the void to help. It could be said that they could easily kill the 9 mighty ferocious beasts. Screech, screech. Hitorigami and Ho Qing were the first to attack. They rushed to the left and each locked onto a mighty ferocious beasts. They raised their heads and roared. In an instant, corpse-like evil spirits gushed out of their bodies. They rolled like a raging river and majestic like the ocean. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 2 giant heads that were as big as stars. They opened their ferocious mouths. In just one mouthful, they swallowed the 2 mighty ferocious beasts. Immediately after, a chilling crunching sound was heard. The two ferocious beasts only let out a few miserable howls before they fell silent and died. The desolate Electro-lady and Empyrean maiden rushed to the right. There were also two mighty ferocious beasts in this direction. They were also locked onto by the two ferocious beasts. They each rushed to one of the ferocious beasts and attacked instantly. Gotcha! There was not even a rumbling sound of thunder. Instead, the sound of lightning suddenly rang out in the void. A golden lightning bolt that was tens of thousands of feet thick suddenly appeared above the head of a mighty ferocious beast. It struck straight at the top of its head and instantly caused its body to explode. This was the desolate Electro-lady's attack. Her golden lightning was a special lightning bloodline that was related to the power of laws. In addition, the ferocious beasts were weaker than her by a few levels. It was only natural that they would be killed in one strike. After ending all of this, the desolate Lady of Lightning waved her hand, and an invisible force swept out, gathering all of the majestic chi and blood that was formed after the body of this ferocious beast exploded. He immediately compressed it into a ball of blood that was about 10 feet in size and kept it in his body. He was going to give it to Yi Xian later so that he could condense it into a blood essence for him. Ming, at the same time, the Nine Heavens maiden also made her move. A green mist gushed out from her body and instantly enveloped her entire body. In less than half a breath, this green mist, which was already comparable to a giant star, actually expanded and contracted in an instant, transforming into an incomparably huge ninth heaven mystic bird. Both its beak and claws emitted a green sharpness. It flapped its wings and flew up, pouncing on the back of a powerful ferocious beast. With just a swipe of its claws, it instantly tore apart a powerful ferocious beast whose aura had long been locked onto. Bang! Almost in the next instant, the body of this powerful ferocious beast exploded into a mist of blood. The ninth heaven mystic bird waved its claws, and in an instant, an invisible force swept out, gathering all of the majestic chi and blood that was formed after the body of this powerful ferocious beast exploded. Ming! Screech! At the same time, in the void in front of the left, there was also an incomparably resounding clear cry, as well as a soft whistle that revealed an endless sense of laziness. Turning around, it was the celestial phoenix maiden's nine-tailed celestial fox who was making a move in this direction. The celestial phoenix maiden had the bloodline of the true phoenix in her body, and at this moment, had already manifested her bloodline true body. She had transformed into an incomparably dazzling supreme true phoenix, mighty and gorgeous. Her entire body was bathed in the true phoenix heavenly fire, imperceptibly exuding a sense of disdain and arrogance. At this moment, as this gigantic supreme true phoenix stretched out her neck and let out an incomparably resounding clear cry, a great river of flames formed from the endless true phoenix heavenly fire instantly sprayed out from her mouth. In just half a breath, it had already completely enveloped the powerful ferocious beast whose aura had already been locked on. An incomparably shrill howl was heard. This powerful ferocious beast's body was bound by the great river of flames of the true phoenix heavenly fire, and could not move at all. He only struggled for a breath of time before his entire body exploded, and all of the majestic blood mist was sucked into the supreme true phoenix's stomach. As for the nine-tailed celestial fox, at this moment, she had also revealed her bloodline true body. This was an incomparably charming snow-white jade fox. Her fox fur was as white as snow, and her hair was silvery, shining with the round luster of jade. The jade fox's body was not very large, only about 10,000 feet long. Behind her, 9 furry tails of the same color swayed without wind, but the speed was very slow, imperceptibly exuding an extremely languid feeling. The strange thing was that the 9-tailed celestial fox clearly did not do anything unusual. She only raised her head and let out a soft howl, but the powerful ferocious beast whose aura was locked on by her suddenly came to an abrupt halt. He just floated in the void like that, his eyes staring blankly, and he did not do anything else. Following this scene, the 9-tailed celestial fox finally stretched her back. Her figure was like a leopard cat as she stood on her hind legs and stepped on the soft fox steps. She seemed to be very far away, but with just one step, she had already arrived beside this powerful ferocious beast. Bang! She still did not need to make a move. After the 9-tailed celestial fox approached, she just lightly brushed her 9 fox tails on this dazed ferocious beast, who seemed to have fallen into some kind of illusion. His huge physical body had already exploded with a loud bang, and just like that, his body and soul were destroyed. Of course, this powerful ferocious beast's physical body exploded into a majestic blood chi that could not be wasted. The nine-tailed celestial fox raised her head and inhaled. All the blood mist that was about to spread out in the void instantly turned into a river of blood and entered her body. She would give it to Yi Xian later on to condense the blood essence of the powerful ferocious beast. In the blink of an eye, 6 of the 7 gorgeous cultivators had already made their moves. It was as if they had killed a powerful ferocious beast in an instant. At this time, an earth-shattering roar came from the left front. Fairy Zi Xia, one of the 7 gorgeous cultivators, had finally made her move. Boom! Rumble. Fairy Zi Xia was still in her human form, and even her body shape had not changed. However, the powerful ferocious beast that she had locked onto had a body like a giant star. Compared to the two, Fairy Zi Xia was not eye-catching. However, at this moment, along with the earth-shattering roar, endless purple mist gushed out from her seemingly petite body. It rolled like a river and gathered under Fairy Zi Xia's feet. In an instant, it had gathered into a purple ocean. Imperceptibly, a supreme and majestic aura spread out. Fairy Zi Xia's eyes flashed, and her figure, who was standing on the sea of clouds, instantly disappeared. The sea of mist that exuded the endless Myrtle Emperor's aura also surged and turned into a giant purple dragon. After a clear roar, she had already arrived in front of the powerful ferocious beast. She raised her forelimbs high and pressed them down with a loud bang. The powerful ferocious beast's huge inner body exploded with a bang. Chapter 4800. In a short period of time, the 7 gorgeous cultivators attacked almost at the same time. Each of them killed a powerful ferocious beast. It only took 3 breaths of time, so short that it was almost negligible. After 3 breaths of time, only 2 of the original 9 powerful ferocious beasts of the Ferocious Beast Alliance were left. Although these 2 ferocious beasts were the strongest, like the 7 gorgeous cultivators, they had also reached the Great Perfection Stage 9, which was the half-step Desolate Supremacy realm. But at this point, the annihilation of these 9 ferocious beasts was unavoidable. It was as if it was destined. The 7 gorgeous cultivators were fighting 7 against 2. In addition, there were also 9 powerful black demonic dragons in charge of sealing this corner of the void. If they were to let them escape, it would be too ridiculous. The 7 gorgeous cultivators were all existences that had experienced the Great War of the Desolate Era. With their rich experience, it was naturally impossible for them to make such a mistake. Roar. Whoosh! Seeing this scene, the black fog avatar in the distance waved his hand and retrieved the 9-colored flame sea that filled the void. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, he immediately turned around and rushed into the distance. The skeleton avatar was the same. It held the big-headed black stick in its hand and let out a shocking roar. In the blink of an eye, it followed behind, in front of the 2, billions of miles away, the flesh avatar, Bao Yuan, and the Ferocious Beast Alliance's Wolf Lord were fighting fiercely. Although Bao Yuan's cultivation realm was the same as Wolf Lord, he was only a late-stage 7th-stage Desolate Supremacy. However, his true battle strength was comparable to a late-stage 8th-stage Desolate Supremacy. The battle had only lasted for a dozen breaths of time, and Wolf Lord had already fallen into a disadvantage. Although it was not to the extent that he could only defend and had no power to fight back, it was not far away. However, he was a powerful late-stage Desolate Supremacy after all. If Bao Yuan alone did not use the Fallen Sky Bao and other powerful abilities, and without the big-headed black stick and Shinong Cauldron in his hands, it was impossible to kill him. In fact, Bao Yuan did not have such thoughts at all. He only wanted to delay Wolf Lord and prevent him from attacking the 7 gorgeous cultivators. At the same time, he could not get away. Obviously, he did it, because whether it was the 7 gorgeous cultivators, the skeleton avatar, or the black fog avatar, the battle was almost over. Roar, damn it, a dignified Desolate Supremacy, are you planning to bully me with numbers? At this moment, the skeleton doppelganger and the black mist doppelganger roared and charged over. However, they were held back by the violent ape and were unable to extricate themselves. The wolf sovereign's eyelids twitched as he raised his head and let out a furious roar. You're speaking as if you weren't bullying the weak with numbers. Bao Yuan curled his lips. Yi Xian's spiritual sense voice resounded as well. It could be heard clearly in the entire void. Now that it's your turn, you're using such words to provoke me. To think that you're a late-stage desolate supremacy. Do you have any shame? Moreover, these are just my 3 blood sea clones. I am the only one. If you are not convinced, why don't you make 3 of them yourself? PFFF, these words were too hurtful. The wolf sovereign was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with grief and indignation. Of course, he could create a clone, but to have the same cultivation level as his main body was a fool's dream. Not to mention the late-stage desolate supremacy realm, he wasn't even at the early-stage desolate supremacy realm. At most, he was at the late-stage desolate supremacy realm. What's more, the more clones there were, the greater the impact on one's body. Now that he was being beaten up in his peak state, if he were to create a few more clones, wouldn't he be in an even worse state? Roar, screech. At this moment, the skeleton doppelganger and the black fog doppelganger had already arrived in front of him. They each occupied one side, forming a tripartite formation. Together with the violent ape, they surrounded the wolf sovereign. Phew, without any hesitation, the black mist clone waved its hand, and a 9-colored ray of light shot out at an extremely fast speed. It was faster than lightning, and at the same time, it expanded explosively against the wind. In less than half a breath, this originally insignificant 9-colored light had already evolved into a vast 9-colored flame sea, and it was spreading to the left and right at an extremely fast speed. It was clearly trying to completely seal off the space where the wolf sovereign was, leaving no room for escape. Shenong 9-colored flame? In that case, this stick should be the Shenong pestle. Moreover, in your hands, there is still a Shenong treasure cauldron that you have yet to use. Seeing this 9-colored sea of flames, the wolf sovereign's eyes flashed with a dark light. He was absent-minded for a moment, and his eyes were somewhat blank. Even the words in his mouth were like whispers in his sleep. He knew that he would definitely die today. Furthermore, after he died, the ferocious beast alliance would not be able to escape this calamity. Even the independent grotto heaven where many ferocious beast almighties and desolate supremacies were still slumbering would fall into the hands of the demon hall. Today, this sovereign admits defeat, but don't be complacent. The beast clan will one day seek revenge. Thinking of this, the wolf sovereign seemed to have made some kind of decision. His eyes became incomparably firm, and his voice suddenly became sharp. Halfway through his words, he actually raised his head and roared, roar. Explode. Bang! With the last roar, the wolf sovereign's huge body instantly exploded. This was the rhythm of his body and soul exploding at the same time. The energy was so majestic that even Yi Xian's 3 blood sea doppelgangers had a drastic change in expression at the same time. Whoosh! As the wolf sovereign's huge body exploded, a gray light shot out from his body and directly rushed into the Beast Alliance's star domain in the distance. Its speed was extremely fast, and it had disappeared in the blink of an eye. In this regard, Yi Xian did not intercept it, because this light had nothing to do with the wolf sovereign. It was not his soul that was trying to escape, but more like an energy imprint used to activate some kind of ancient formation. Of course, the more important reason was that he was completely unable to free himself at this moment. Although the wolf sovereign was a late-stage desolate sovereign of the 7th order, and now that his body and soul had exploded together, although he could injure Yi Xian, it was only a light injury at most. It was impossible for him to even be seriously injured. However, the 7 beautiful cultivators and the 9 black demonic dragons in the distance were different. If they were raged by this violent energy, the 7 beautiful cultivators would definitely be seriously injured again. This was definitely not what Yi Xian wanted to see. These 7 girls had just recovered their peak cultivation from their previous lives, and were planning to adjust their mentality before going into seclusion to break through to the supreme desolate realm. If they were to be severely injured at this time, it would be too big of a blow to them. Therefore, no matter what, he could not let this majestic and violent energy wreak havoc. If it was someone else, they would not be able to do anything even if they wanted to. However, Yi Xian was different. He had the Shinong treasured cauldron. Although the power of the late-stage desolate sovereign's self-destruction was terrifying, it was still far from being able to shake the Shinong treasured cauldron. It was not only a supreme desolate sovereign, but also a precious treasure of the great desolate era. How could it be destroyed so easily? Chapter 4801. Whoosh! As the wolf sovereign's huge body exploded, a gray light shot out from his body and directly rushed into the star domain of the Beast Alliance in the distance. Its speed was extremely fast, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Yi Xian saw this gray light, he did not intercept it. Because judging from its aura, the gray light clearly had nothing to do with the wolf sovereign. It was not his divine soul that was trying to escape, but more like an energy brand used to activate some kind of ancient formation. His guess was indeed correct. This was the truth. Facing Yi Xian, who was sitting on the Shinong treasured cauldron, and the Shinong exotic flame in the cauldron had grown to the level of a 9-colored flame, he knew that there was no chance of survival at all. Even if he self-destructed and wanted to escape with a wisp of his divine soul, it was absolutely impossible. Therefore, the wolf sovereign did not do so. What he sent out was only a gray light that had nothing to do with him. This gray light shot out, and after entering the depths of the star domain where the Beast Alliance was located, it went straight to the gray light cluster that was regarded as a holy land by the countless forbidden beasts in the void of this fragment of the universe. And it disappeared into it at the first moment. Then, an upheaval occurred. Boom! Rumble. An earth-shattering rumble resounded, and the entire void could be heard clearly. At this moment, as the undetectable gray light rushed into the gray light ball, the entire gray light ball that was as huge as a star was instantly like a giant head. It was as if a sleeping beast had suddenly awakened. As the earth-shattering rumbles continued, an invisible and mysterious power spread out from the gray light ball. All the star beasts in this area, no matter how strong or weak they were, could sense it clearly. Roar! Roar! Screech! At this moment, all the ferocious beasts in the innumerable planets of the ferocious Beast Alliance roared, revealing endless joy and excitement. They felt the call, the ancient call from their bloodline. All of a sudden, as if they were on a pilgrimage, all the ferocious beasts in the universe rushed out of the life stars where they were staying. They used their fastest speed to rush to the source of the ancient bloodline call, which was the gray light cluster that seemed to be the awakening of the dormant ferocious beasts. At the same time, an extremely terrifying suction force suddenly emanated from this mysterious gray ball of light, and it was only effective towards the ferocious beasts in the starry sky. However, the stars in space weren't affected at all. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! As the gray light cluster slowly rotated, it became like a gray vortex. An extremely terrifying suction force came, and the large number of beasts that were converging toward the gray light cluster in the void instantly increased their momentum by more than 10 times. A series of piercing noises rang out. This was the noise caused by a large number of ferocious beasts in space being sucked into the gray light ball as their bodies turned into streaks of light. All of this happened too quickly. In just a dozen breaths, there were countless ferocious beasts in the vast galaxy occupied by the ferocious Beast Alliance. But now, more than 70% of them had entered the gray light cluster. Hum, a low hum sounded, and the rotation of the gray light cluster came to an abrupt stop. Then, it quickly condensed inwards, turning into a speck of light in the blink of an eye, and disappeared. Roar! Roar roar roar! Screech! In the void, countless ferocious beasts roared and howled. In the vast star field occupied by the beasts, there were still nearly 30% of the ferocious beasts left, but now it was as if they had been abandoned. Among the shocking roars and howls, there was nothing that could be seen. It was filled with anger and desperation. Walala, as the wolf sovereign's physical body exploded, Yi Xian's 3 blood sea clones instantly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that merged into the vast sea of blood beneath his feet. Almost at the same time, the entire vast sea of blood quickly condensed into a single point. On the contrary, the 9-colored sea of flames that was originally rolling in from all directions suddenly soared in power, enveloping all the violent energy of the wolf sovereign's explosion. Whoosh! At the same time, a ray of light shot out. As it expanded in the wind, it turned into the Shinong treasure cauldron. It was as huge as a star, standing in the void. The weak blood light immediately rushed into the treasure cauldron. Then, from the mouth of the Shinong treasure cauldron, which was filled with 9-colored mist, an incomparably powerful suction force came out. The 9-colored flame that had just enveloped the violent energy formed by the explosion of the wolf's sovereign's physical body, the sea disappeared in an instant. It was pulled into the treasure cauldron and sent to the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the cauldron, where it began to condense blood essence. And this would also allow the number of desolate sovereign blood essence in Yi Xian's hands to break through to 3. Whoosh! The sound of air breaking rang out, and Bao Yuan's figure rushed out of the cauldron. However, he had already returned to his original height. With a wave of his hand, the Shinong treasure cauldron that was as large as a star turned into a ray of light and rushed into his body, disappearing. Screech! Screech, screech, screech! In the distant void, the 9 black dragons raised their heads at the same time and let out a heaven-shaking screech. Then, with a flash of their bodies, they rushed towards the demonic dragon carriage. There was no need for them to form a large formation to seal that corner of the void, because the remaining 2 powerful beasts had been killed, and the 7 gorgeous cultivators had stopped. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! After turning their heads and exchanging glances, the 7 gorgeous cultivators waved their hands at the same time and sent out 1 or 2 blood beads that were about 10 feet in radius. They were the blood beads that they had obtained from killing the 9 powerful beasts. With their abilities, they could only compress the majestic blood mist formed by the explosion of the 9 powerful beasts to this extent. Therefore, they could only give it to Yi Xian and let him send it into the Shinong treasure cauldron. With the power of the 9-colored flame sea in the treasure cauldron, he could completely refine it into a powerful treasure pill. Previously, the supreme expert's blood essence in Yi Xian's hands had already been used up, and he had refined a batch of level 29 desolate sovereign pellets. Now, there were only a few desolate sovereign pellets left in his hands, and each of the 7 great beauties gave one to him. Now that he had obtained 9 more blood essences, as long as he was willing, he could refine another batch of level 29 desolate sovereign treasure pills at any time. However, Yi Xian clearly did not plan to do so. Even if 2 of the 9 blood essences were of the highest quality, if nothing unexpected happened, it would only be able to refine 7 level 29 desolate sovereign treasure pills at most. The benefits were not maximized, and with the desolate sovereign treasure pills in his hands, he was not in a hurry. He needed. Therefore, he decided to keep these 9 blood essences in his hands, and refine them when he needed them in the future. Presumably, he would have more blood essences in his hands at that time. This was an extremely rare resource, and no matter what, he had to maximize the utilization of this resource as much as possible. Considering that there were other forces and Alliance scouts secretly watching in the distant void, the 7 gorgeous cultivators did not greet Yi Xian as their master. After thanking him politely, they immediately returned to the demon dragon's carriage. They left immediately. As for Yi Xian in his ape form, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he turned his head to look at the depths of the star field occupied by the Beast Alliance in the distance. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 4802. Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking through the air rang out, and a figure appeared without warning in the deepest part of the star field occupied by the fierce Beast Alliance. It was Yi Xian in the form of a violent ape. This was the place where the gray ball of light had been standing, but it was now empty. There were only some fierce beasts wandering in the distance, and from time to time, they would let out 1 or 2 angry and unwilling roars. There's actually a trace of the aura of the primordial void? After spreading out his divine sense and sweeping the surroundings, Yi Xian's eyes immediately locked onto the spot where the gray ball of light had turned into a wisp of gray light and finally disappeared completely. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he muttered softly, obviously, there was originally an independent grotto heaven here, but in the end, because of some kind of arrangement, the entire grotto heaven had disappeared, and in all likelihood, it had gone to the primordial void. To be able to make such a big move, it was naturally not an ordinary existence. At the very least, it had to be a supreme primordial stage 9th stage powerhouse, which was a half-step heavenly Tao powerhouse. And from the fact that this mysterious independent grotto heaven had taken away more than 70% of the fierce beasts of the Fierce Beast Alliance before leaving, this person was most likely an ancient high-ranking member of the Fierce Beast race, However, this matter had no effect on Yi Xian. If he wanted to go to the primordial void, he could do it at any time. Now that the other party had left with more than 70% of the fierce beasts in the Fierce Beast Alliance and entered the primordial void, at most, the news that the violent ape was in this primordial void fragment would leak to the primordial void. Yi Xian no longer cared about this point. The current him, even in that primordial void, was an overlord who could do whatever he wanted. Not to mention, in the most powerful forbidden areas and star fields on both sides of the primordial void, existences at the level of supreme primordial void did not dare to easily appear. The void tortoise had always been lying in wait, eyeing them covetously. It was waiting for a desolate to appear so that it could hunt it down and gather the desolate supreme blood essence needed to refine the level 30 heavenly path treasure pill. After putting this matter aside for the time being, Yi Xian immediately extended his divine sense with all his strength. In an instant, it enveloped the entire Fierce Beast Alliance. Although this area was vast, there were not many ferocious beasts left. Before the independent cave left, it had taken away more than 70% of the ferocious beasts. Now that there were so few left, Yi Xian was not interested in them at all. The key was that they were too weak, there wasn't even a single emperor. This was expected, an emperor-level being, no matter how far away they were, wouldn't miss the final chance to leave. Even though there were still quite a number of space beasts left, the strongest ones were only emperor-level undyings, and they were only at the initial level. Even if they were taken in as subordinates, it would take a lot of time and resources to grow. Yi Xian wasn't interested at all. Thinking of this, he immediately turned around and left. With a shake of his shoulders, his entire figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the horizon. Roar! Ruthless, with Yi Xian's departure, the remaining ferocious beasts in the star field occupied by the Star Alliance rushed out of the edge of the star field one after another. Some were alone, some were in groups of 3 to 5, dispersing in all directions. Even though this star field was good, the Fierce Beast Alliance only existed in name now, and there wasn't even a single undying emperor left. The other powers and alliances would definitely covet the many life stars in this star field, and soon, an army would invade this star field. Whether it was the Survivors Alliance or the Star Alliance, the Myriad Races Alliance, and the Human Federation from the 3 main dimensions of the sky, it was not good news for them. In the end, they would either be killed or enslaved. It was better to take advantage of the current situation and disperse. This scene was witnessed by the scouts from various powers and alliances in the distant void outside the star field. Everyone looked at each other in horror. All the ferocious beasts in the Fierce Beast Alliance were dispersing like birds. This was clearly a sign that the alliance was disbanded and no longer existed. However, they couldn't determine the reason behind this. Because even if the master of the magic hall just killed 2 ferocious beasts, desolate supremes, and 9 powerful ferocious beasts, there should still be some ancient beings of this level in the depths of the ancestral land of the Fierce Beast Alliance. They should be in hibernation. They originally wanted to leave because they couldn't wait to report everything that happened here to the higher-ups of their clans as soon as possible. However, at this moment, after seeing the countless ferocious beasts of the Fierce Beast Alliance dispersing in groups of 2s and 3s, the scouts from various alliances and powers suppressed their urge to leave and stayed in hibernation in the distance. It was not until there were very few ferocious beasts that rushed out of the star field that the scouts drove out of their hibernation place and rushed into the star field ahead to investigate. Soon, exclamations were heard. What? The entire star field is empty? The Fierce Beast Alliance has completely disbanded. Just now, I did a soul search and found out that in their ancestral land, there was a mysterious gray ball of light that had moved away. It took away more than 70% of the ferocious beasts in the alliance. No wonder the remaining ferocious beasts chose to flee in all directions. Among them, there isn't even a single undying emperor. If they stay here, they won't be able to defend at all. Instead, they will become prey. Only 4 of the 5 alliances are left. The Demon Hall Master is alone, and in one battle, he has already destroyed one. Hong! Hong long long, amidst the earth-shattering exclamations, the scouts from various powers and clans drove out of the star field occupied by the Fierce Beast Alliance. They used their fastest speed to return to their clans. This was because they still had to send the news back and let the higher-ups decide whether to accept this vast star field left behind by the Fierce Beast Alliance. One had to know, this was a big piece of fat meat. In just a few days, everything that happened in the Fierce Beast Alliance had spread throughout this vast and boundless void fragment of the wilderness. Other than the Fierce Beast Alliance, the remaining 4 alliances and the other powers and clans that didn't form an alliance were all shocked when they heard the news. Within these 2 years, the Fierce Beast Alliance had actually silently awakened 9 powerful ferocious beasts and 2 desolate supremes. And these 2 desolate supremes were late-stage desolate supremes of the 7th stage. Coincidentally, Sky River Star Master Yi Xian's Demon Dragon Imperial Chariot was being driven by 7 beautiful attendants to play. Coincidentally, when they passed by the star field where the Fierce Beast Alliance was located, they actually courted death. The 9 powerful ferocious beasts and 2 desolate supremes attacked at the same time, surrounding the 7 beautiful attendants and the Demon Dragon Imperial Chariot. All of them were surrounded. What was strange was that Sky River Star Master Yi Xian wasn't there. No one knew where he went. At the most critical moment, the Master of the Magic Hall angrily rushed out of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land and directly arrived at the Fierce Beast Alliance. With thunderous methods, he battled the 9 powerful ferocious beasts of the Fierce Beast Alliance. And the 2 late-stage Desolate Supremes were killed in one fell swoop. As a result, the independent grotto heaven of the Fierce Beast Alliance's ancestral land in the depths of the star field also changed. It took away 70% of the ferocious beasts and migrated away. The remaining 30% of the ferocious beasts also scattered. Now, the entire star field occupied by the Fierce Beast Alliance was completely empty. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 4803. The result of this battle shocked all the forces and clans. The moment the news spread, the entire vast and boundless void fragment of the untainted land fell silent. At that time, there were scouts from all the forces who were watching the battle in the distant void. Not only did they spread the final result of this battle, but they also recorded the entire process of the battle in great detail. Matter in fact, the entire battle situation did not need to be described because the scouts of all the major forces had recorded the video in the distant void. All the details could be seen clearly in the video. Here at this time, in the main control hall of a flagship with a diameter of 1 million meters in the Sky River Star of the Sky River Sector, a group of senior officials of the Sky River Sector gathered together. Bao including Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Demon King Mo Wen Tian, Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Turtle Clan Leader Ming Jiu, Mad Mosquito Emperor, as well as Old Man Shenyuan and Old Man Duanmu, Abbess Bodhi, and other senior officials of small idol forces and clans. Dang, of course, there were also the 3 girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. However, the atmosphere in the hall was somewhat oppressive and gloomy because the 3 girls still looked angry. Obviously, they were still angry. In this regard, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Old Man Shenyuan, Old Man Duanmu, and the other senior officials could only look at each other and shake their heads with bitter smiles. Because of this, even they didn't know what words to use to persuade him this time. Previously, the holographic image screen was playing the earth-shattering battle that took place in the void outside the ominous Beast Alliance a few days ago. The live scene of the battle was extremely clear, from beginning to end. In this battle, Yi Xian did not reveal his true appearance. Instead, he appeared as the Master of the Magic Hall, so there was no flaw in this. However, the situation at that time was different. In order to kill the venerable insect and venerable wolf of the ferocious Beast Alliance, not only did he use the big-headed black stick and the 9-colored flame sea, he even used the Shinong Cauldron at the last moment. The higher-ups of the Sky River Galaxy were all very familiar with these treasures. It could be said that these treasures were all branded with Yi Xian's mark, but now they were in the hands of the Master of the Magic Hall. However, he didn't show himself. This was too suspicious. Even a fool could see that something was wrong. Soon, the video ended. Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were gritting their teeth. The other 2 did not say anything. At this critical moment, they followed the lead of their big sister, Purplish Warbler. As for the latter, after the video ended, he immediately glanced at all the high-level officials of the Sky River sector in the hall. Finally, his eyes fell on Mosquito Butcher. He gritted his teeth and said, "Old Mosquito Butcher, tell me, that big monkey. Who is he?" Old Mosquito Butcher was so shocked that his whole body trembled. The bitter smile on his face deepened. Everyone else secretly heaved a sigh of relief and turned to look elsewhere. It was as if they didn't see or hear what was happening in front of them. Old Mosquito Butcher looked around and saw that no one was willing to share his joys and sorrows. He was so angry that he rolled his eyes. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. He said with a bitter smile, "Since you asked me, then tell me. There are two possibilities. First, that big monkey. No, I mean the master of the magic hall is actually that kid surnamed Yi. He lied to us earlier. However, when the Big Five Alliance attacked the magic hall together, that kid surnamed Yi and the master of the magic hall appeared at the same time and fought against the enemy. Therefore, the possibility of this happening is not high. It should only be about 30%, since it's 30%, it's not completely impossible. After all, although the master of the magic hall sent out all three of his Blood Sea avatars, that was before that kid surnamed Yi appeared. After that kid surnamed Yi appeared, he kept one of his avatars in the magic hall and didn't appear again. Therefore, this is also quite suspicious. At this point, Old Mosquito Butcher paused for a moment. After a few moments of silence, he suddenly changed the topic and said, "As for the second possibility, that is that our current guess is overthinking. The two of them are not the same person at all. Although the master of the magic hall used the big-headed black stick in the farmer god's cauldron in the battle against the Beast Alliance, it's very likely that the kid surnamed Yi temporarily lent the big-headed black stick in the farmer god's cauldron to the master of the magic hall because of their good relationship. As for the 7 girls being besieged, he wasn't there, didn't the kid surnamed Yi say earlier? He had something very important to do, and it was extremely urgent, so he left in a hurry. Perhaps it wasn't convenient for him to bring the 7 girls with him to do this? Since that's the case, the 7 girls can't be wandering outside without some protection. It's understandable that he left the demon dragon chariot for them to play with. Their mode of transportation. Crunch, crunch. At this point, the 3 girls suddenly made a lot of noise from grinding their teeth. Their faces were extremely ashen, and it was clear that they were going to grind their teeth to pieces on the spot. They stared at Old Mosquito Butcher so hard that their gazes could almost spit fire. At this scene, Old Mosquito Butcher heard the chilling crunching sounds and shuddered reflexively. He subconsciously changed his words. Fong turned around and continued, "Of course, although this is only this old man's guess. But if this is really the case, then Yizichin is in the wrong. No matter how weak the 7 girls are, they're all powerful beings of the primordial era at the pinnacle of level 9. We don't even have one half-step desolate master in the vast Milky Way sector, but there are 7 of them together. Comparatively speaking, you, Little T, and Xian Ru are only undying emperors now, and you haven't even become universe knights yet. Comparatively speaking, you definitely need more protection than them. That kid didn't even consider this. It's simply crunch, crunch." When he finished speaking, the 3 girls started to grind their teeth even louder. They stared at Old Mosquito Butcher fiercely, as if they were about to attack at any time. "Did I say something wrong?" That's right." Old Mosquito Butcher was stunned. After a while, he suddenly realized something. He slapped the back of his head, and a touch of indignation appeared on his face. "Look at me, I'm so old and muddle-headed. The key is not the problem of cultivation, but the problem of distance. Those 7 girls called him master earlier, but they're obviously just maids. But you're different. Who in the 3 main planes of the starry sky doesn't know that you 3 girls are Yi Xian's confidants? This guy is such a jerk. He went out for a stroll and met a few wildflowers, and he completely forgot about the flowers at home. He needs to be taught a lesson. When he comes back in the future, I'll teach him a good lesson. Evil can't be encouraged, and it must be nipped in the bud, this matter. I support with both hands. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4804. In the depths of the star field occupied by the Survivors Alliance, there was a giant cyan life star. This giant cyan life star was the headquarters of the Survivors Alliance. In the east of the star, there was a towering mountain facing the sea, and there was a palace at the top of the mountain. This was the headquarters of the Survivors Alliance. Now, there were more than 200 figures in the palace, and all of them were Universe Knights or above. More than half of them were Universe Knights, more than 100 of them were Universe Knights, more than 40 Universe Masters, and 24 Universe Supremes. In addition, there were 3 powerful beings from the Primordial Era. As for the Primordial Era Supreme, there was no one. The 3 powerful beings of the Survivors Alliance were in the middle stage of the Primordial Era Supreme, and they had only awakened in the past 2 years, so they didn't participate in the previous battle of the Magic Hall. The other one was the Elder who led the army of the Survivors Alliance and the other 4 alliances to attack the Magic Hall 2 years ago, but he wasn't here now. In that battle, his cultivation was at the 7th step of the Desolate Ancient Era, and he was beaten up by Yi Xian. Furthermore, he was rewarded with a large amount of purple gold precious medicines and 9-color divine medicines. After returning, he went into seclusion, and within a short 2 years, he had already broken through to the great perfection of the 9th step of the Desolate Ancient Era, which was the half-step Desolate Sovereign Realm. In the last meeting, this black-robed powerful being said that he would go out to do something, and then he would go into seclusion. If there were no accidents, he would be able to break through to the Primordial Era Supreme within a short time. Such words shocked everyone at that time, but none of the high-level people present dared to ask about it, including the other 3 powerful figures of the remote antiquity era who had awakened in the past 2 years. Since then, this black-robed powerful being left the Survivors Alliance, and no one knew where he went. In fact, this person secretly went to the Magic Hall to visit the Master of the Magic Hall. Dang! On that day, Yi Xian promised him that if he broke through to the 9th stage of the Primordial Era Supreme, he could go to the Magic Hall in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun and ask the Master of the Magic Hall for a level 29 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill. This Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill could help him break through to the Primordial Era Supreme in a short time. Yes, at that time, the black-robed Supreme Expert didn't completely believe his words. Even though he personally saw Yi Xian casually bestow a large amount of purple gold medicine and the legendary 9-color divine medicine, he still couldn't believe it. 'Cause this was simply too shocking. A single pill could allow him to smoothly break through to the Supreme Primordial Realm in such a short period of time. This simply overturned his worldview. One had to know, which Primordial Great Perfection Stage 9th Order expert didn't need a long period of accumulation and some luck to successfully break through. For example, the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock were like that. Back at the end of the Desolation Era, they were already Desolate Ancient Almighties at the Great Perfection Realm of rank 9. However, they only became rank 1 Desolate Supremacies now. However, even though it was hard to believe, he had indeed successfully raised his cultivation from rank 7 Almighty to complete rank 9 Almighty in a short period of time. Now that it was time to ask for and swallow the level 29 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill, the black-robed mighty figure finally couldn't hold back and went to the Magic Hall with a tentative attitude. The result was no doubt that Yi Xian, who received him as the Master of the Magic Hall, directly gave him a level 29 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill. As a result, there were only 5 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pills left in his hands, but Yi Xian didn't feel the pinch. On the one hand, with this Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill, he could gain more, which was enough to pull the Survivors Alliance into the Magic Hall camp. On the other hand, in the future, this level 29 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill could still be refined again. When the black-robed mighty figure asked for a level 29 Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill and returned to the Survivors Alliance, the changes in the Beast Alliance had not yet happened. Although he didn't know what this level 29 meant, he understood the 4 words Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill, and it made his heart excited, and he entered into seclusion at the first time. Counting the time, now a full 10 days had passed. 4 days ago, the changes in the Beast Alliance exploded. After a battle, the entire Beast Alliance disappeared from this piece of chaos fragment void. The original 4 major alliances, in the blink of an eye, only 4 were left. All of this was so unreal that even all the powerhouses in the Star Alliance, the alliance of 10,000 races, and the Human Federation felt like they were in a dream, and they were greatly shocked. Like the Beast Alliance, the Survivors Alliance's strength was now in an awkward position, so it was natural that they were even more shocked because of this. Matter in fact, as soon as the news of the shocking changes in the Beast Alliance came, a group of senior members of the Survivors Alliance had already hurriedly gathered here. Although there was a mighty figure present, all of them were only at the middle stage of this realm, and they had only awakened in the last 2 years. They had never participated in the battle in the Magic Hall 2 years ago, so they didn't know much about the various alliances and the Magic Hall. Therefore, the 3 of them didn't dare to make any decisions. Everyone could only anxiously wait for the black-robed mighty figure to come out of seclusion. Now, another 6 days had passed. Counting the time, the black-robed mighty figure had entered seclusion to break through to the Supreme of the Ancients' realm. It had been a full 10 days, but there was still no sign of him coming out of seclusion. Sigh, we are really a bit whimsical. We actually gathered here to wait for him to come out of seclusion. The dead silence in the hall was suddenly broken at this moment. One of the 3 mighty figures showed a wry smile on his face, shook his head and sighed. We are also mighty figures of the ancients, so we naturally understand how difficult it is for a peak stage 9 powerhouse to break through to the Supreme of the Ancients realm. In my impression, the one who took the shortest time to break through to the Supreme of the Ancients realm seemed to have spent tens of thousands of years, and under the circumstances of some kind of amazing opportunity, he smoothly broke through. At this point, he no longer mentioned this matter. Instead, he sighed softly again. After looking around at the hundreds of high-level members in the hall, his eyes fell on the other 2 mighty figures. With a flash of light in his eyes, he continued, the 2 of you, it seems that only the 3 of us can decide how to deal with the existential crisis facing the remnant tribe this time. Boom. Rumble. As soon as his words fell, in the void of the remnant alliance outside the star, there suddenly came a few thunderous roars. The power was so amazing that the giant star under their feet seemed to tremble slightly. Everything happened so suddenly that everyone in the hall was caught off guard. They were stunned on the spot. Tight, then, including the mighty figure who just spoke, all the high-level members of the Remnant Alliance in the hall suddenly seemed to sense something. Their faces changed wildly, and they exclaimed in horror. What? This is the aura of the lightning tribulation, and it is the lightning tribulation of the desolate supremacy. The tribulation clouds are gathering inside the star field occupied by our remnant alliance. God, the old ancestor succeeded. 10 days. It only took him 10 days. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 4805. The Survivors Alliance, inside the star field. Boom. Rumble. In the air, there were several thunderous roars. The power was so amazing that the giant star under their feet seemed to tremble slightly. Everything happened so suddenly that everyone in the hall was caught off guard and stunned on the spot. Immediately afterward, all the high-level members of the Survivors Alliance in the hall seemed to have sensed something. Their expressions changed wildly, and they exclaimed in horror. Without any hesitation, they rushed out of the hall and out of the star's atmosphere. Come in the void outside the star where the Alliance headquarters was located. Looking up, there was a dense black tribulation cloud gathering above a star on the right side in the distance. Even the entire star was shrouded in it. Look! Seeing this scene, the hundreds of high-level members who rushed out of the Alliance headquarters were all surprised after being stunned for a moment. That star was the star where the black-robed powerful figure was cultivating in seclusion. At this moment, the aura emitted from the dense tribulation cloud that shrouded the entire star was the desolate supremacy lightning tribulation. There was no doubt that it only took him 10 days to successfully break through. Now, he was already a newly promoted desolate supremacy. His aura spread out, and the heavens and earth sensed it, which led to the gathering of the tribulation cloud. At the thought of this, the 3 middle-stage mighty figures exchanged glances. They were so excited that it was as if they had just been injected with chicken blood. They raised their heads and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that our survivors' clan would have such a terrifying desolate supremacy. In just 10 days, he successfully broke through to the supreme desolate supremacy realm. This is simply unheard of. With such talent, what is a small supreme lightning tribulation? He can get through it by lying down. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh, along with the wild laughter of the three of them, which was filled with endless joy, it resounded throughout the entire star field. Battleships and the figures of the survivors rushed out from the various life stars in an instant. Some of them had a look of fear on their faces because they didn't know what was going on. Some of them even thought that the Demon Palace was attacking them and regarded them as the second target to be destroyed after the Beast Alliance. They were so scared that they were trembling all over. Now that they suddenly heard the words of the three remnant people, everyone was startled, then they cheered with joy. In their view, it was absolutely unprecedented for the Desolate Supremacy Realm to smoothly break through to the Supreme Desolate Supremacy Realm in just 10 days. The Survivors Alliance suddenly had such a talented desolate supremacy in this worrying situation. This was clearly the rhythm of their destiny. Even if they didn't immediately turn the situation around, at least they would no longer be as anxious as they were now. Humph. What are you howling for? My lightning tribulation hasn't even started yet, and you're already crying? There was a joyous atmosphere all around, but suddenly, an extremely discordant cold snort was heard. Everyone was so shocked that their expressions froze, and they all turned around in astonishment. Look! In the star covered by endless tribulation clouds in front of them, a figure suddenly rushed out at this time. It was the powerful figure in a black robe who was in seclusion here. No, it should be called the black-robed desolate supremacy now. Because, the aura emanating from his body was the supreme desolate supremacy realm. Only yes, although he successfully broke through in just 10 days, he was actually shocked and happy, but with the arrival of the tribulation clouds, after feeling the invisible aura of the tribulation locking on him, the black-robed desolate supremacy suddenly felt a little inexplicable uneasiness. His foundation was not very stable. Now facing such a terrifying desolate supremacy lightning tribulation, it was impossible to say that he had no confidence. But the probability of successfully resisting was absolutely less than 30%. And the probability of being killed by the tribulation lightning on the spot was as high as 60%. As for the probability of being seriously injured, it was only 50%. Because of this, his mood was so depressed at the moment. After coming out of the star where he was in seclusion, he was really angry when he saw such a joyous scene outside. At this moment, after scolding lightly, he glared fiercely at the high-level members of the remnant people. Then his figure flickered, and he immediately rushed out of the star field where the Remnant People Alliance was located. Regardless of whether he could survive or not, he couldn't cross the tribulation in the star field. Otherwise, who knew how many powerhouses of the Remnant People would become collateral damage? Moreover, while rushing out of the star field, he secretly sent a distress signal in the direction of the rising sun forbidden land where the magic hall was located. Although he had not yet crossed the tribulation and his realm was unstable, he was indeed a supreme desolate supremacy, so he could still do this. However, it was really hard to predict whether the master of the magic hall would help. At this moment, as the black-robed desolate supremacy left quickly with the terrifying tribulation cloud shrouding the sky above his head, the high-level members of the remnant people, who were confused by his previous scolding, turned to look at each other in surprise. Then, with the suspicion in their hearts that was so thick that they couldn't get rid of, they all followed, and their figures shot out. After a while, a group of high-level members rushed out of the star field and looked up. Hundreds of millions of miles away, the figure of the black-robed desolate supremacy could be seen. The tribulation cloud shrouding his head was surging more violently, and the tribulation lightning was about to strike at any time. Their faces changed, and their hearts were in their throats. Boom! Rumble, Kacha! Almost in the next moment, the tribulation cloud high in the sky suddenly surged. After a crisp sound like tearing silk, a thick purple gold lightning instantly struck down. In the blink of an eye, it completely shrouded the figure of the black-robed desolate venerable. This, in an instant, the area within 100 million miles had turned into a sea of purple gold lightning. The violent aura was shocking, the tribulation lightning came quickly and dispersed even faster. In the blink of an eye, the endless sea of lightning that enveloped 100 million miles had completely dissipated, revealing the black-robed desolate supremacy's figure. His clothes were tattered, and his chest was stained with blood. His aura was so weak that it was unbelievable. This was clearly the rhythm of him being seriously injured. Phew. At the same time, the black-robed desolate supremacy, who was seriously injured, raised his hand and put a compressed 9-colored divine medicine into his mouth. The injuries in his body quickly healed, but he was no longer able to resist the second tribulation lightning. There was no need to mention the third tribulation. It was very likely that he would not have the chance to let the other party descend, because he would most likely die on the spot during the second tribulation lightning. At this moment, his eyes were filled with endless unwillingness. After going through so many hardships, he finally broke through to the desolate supremacy realm, but because he was not stable at all, he would die during the tribulation lightning. This was really infuriating. Kacha! A crisp sound rang out, and the tribulation clouds in the sky instantly surged even more violently. After a short breath of time, an incomparably thick purple-gold lightning bolt had already smashed down. Seeing the second purple-gold tribulation lightning strike down, the black-robed desolate supremacy closed his eyes in despair. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 4806. Whoosh. Just as the black-robed sacred venerable was in despair, a crack suddenly appeared in the distant void. A purplish gold seal rushed out from within. It was Yi Xian's Rai Di seal. He naturally would not watch the black-robed desolate venerable die, but he could not personally descend. Therefore, he sent the emperor's seal over. It just so happened that this was a kind of good fortune for the thunder spirit within the emperor's seal. Screech. Almost at the same instant the emperor's seal appeared, an even more joyous screech came from within the emperor's seal. It emitted an even more powerful aura. It was none other than the mighty figures of the primordial era. The last time, the emperor's seal's thunder spirit had broken through to the mighty figure of the primordial era during the lightning tribulation due to the level 30 heavenly Tao treasure pill formula. Now, it was already a stage 1 mighty figure. At this moment, the screech that came out was the emperor's seal's thunder spirit rejoicing. To it, this kind of lightning tribulation was the best opportunity to temper itself. The thunder spirit within the emperor's seal had its cultivation level skyrocketed the last time. After a period of nourishment and absorption, its current realm had already stabilized. And this time, after sensing the powerful aura of the lightning tribulation, the emperor's seal's thunder spirit rejoiced again. This was because this was its opportunity. After the baptism of the lightning tribulation, the Rai Di seal would become even more powerful. The emperor's seal's thunder spirit would also have a high chance of transforming again. This was a great fortune, so naturally, it was extremely excited. It had a feeling that it could no longer hold back and wanted to rush out. Kacha! An ear-piercing crisp sound was heard. In the blink of an eye, the second wave of purplish gold tribulation lightning struck down. Not a single bit of it leaked out. All of it was absorbed by the Rai Di seal. Screech, the thunder spirit's joyous screech came from within the emperor's seal once again. This time, it was eating to its heart's content. The tribulation lightning contained a special energy that was extremely beneficial to the thunder spirit. However, no matter how powerful the tribulation lightning was, it would not cause any harm to it. It was a thunder spirit, and it had always been nurtured within the Rai Di seal. That was the source of all lightning in the world. On the contrary, because of the second wave of tribulation lightning, its cultivation had increased by a large amount. It was on the verge of a stage 2 mighty figure and could break through at any time. And because of this, it was clearly more for the third wave of lightning tribulation lightning that would be even more powerful. In anticipation, rumble, kacha, as soon as the thunder spirit's joyous roar faded, before anyone could react, a third crackling sound came from the horizon. A thicker bolt of purple gold lightning, reaching a length of 200,000 feet, instantly came crashing down. Screech, as this bolt of lightning was instantly swallowed by the Rai Di seal, a joyous roar once again sounded from within the seal. The cultivation aura that was faintly emitted instantly increased from level 1 Almighty to level 3. He had stepped into the peak of the early stage of the Almighty and was only one step away from the middle stage of the Almighty. This time, the Lightning Emperor Seal's fortune was too great. Although it was only a Stage 3 primordial being, due to its lightning spirit constitution, its combat prowess was terrifying. Even a Stage 6 mid-stage peak Stage 6 primordial being might not be a match for it. As for late-stage primordial beings, they could only flee in fear. He retreated in fear. Hiss, after the lightning tribulation ended, the Emperor's seal didn't stop for a moment. A crack appeared in the void, and the Emperor's seal turned into a purple gold light and rushed into it, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Rumble, until this moment, the injuries in the black-robed desolate sovereign's body had fully recovered, and because of the baptism of a wave of lightning tribulation, his realm was slightly stabilized. However, to completely stabilize, it still required a certain amount of time to absorb and digest. As the rumbling sound of thunder became weaker and weaker, the vast tribulation cloud that originally shrouded his head had unknowingly dissipated and could no longer be seen. The black-robed desolate sovereign looked in the direction where the Rai-D seal disappeared in a daze, and his face was full of gratitude. Others didn't know, but he knew who did it just now. Wow! Until this moment, the senior members of the Remnant People and the countless Remnant People powerhouses, who had been completely stunned like petrified in the distance, finally regained their senses. The sound of gasping was overwhelming, and all kinds of horrified exclamations sounded like a tide. The entire void was boiling, and there was a hubbub. What happened? The old ancestor's desolate sovereign lightning tribulation is over just like that? He only withstood the first wave of lightning tribulation. This is too comfortable, it's simply making people jealous. Were the last 2 waves of lightning tribulation swallowed? Hiss. Even the lightning tribulation can be swallowed. What is the origin of the seal just now? It must be related to the thunder. There was a violent roar coming out from it. At first, it was only a Stage 1 powerful figure, but after swallowing 2 waves of lightning tribulation, it suddenly rose to a Stage 3 powerful figure. There must be a thunder spirit in the seal. This is a big gain. These are not important. The most important question is, who does this seal belong to? Who helped the old ancestor of the Remnant People Alliance to cross the tribulation? To be able to possess such a seal, even the thunder spirit in it is a desolate supreme. This mysterious existence must be a desolate supreme. Could it be that there is a powerful desolate supreme in our remnant tribe? Everyone, return to the Alliance star field immediately. Without waiting for the exclamations around the void to die down, the black-robed desolate sovereign, who had changed into a black robe and returned to his original state, had already transmitted his voice through his spirit consciousness. Halfway through his words, he looked at the senior members of the Remnant People, who were still puzzled, nodded, and said, "Follow me. Now that I have successfully broken through, the situation in the void has changed again. The Remnant People Alliance should also make a decision. Choose." In the depths of the star field occupied by the Remnant People Alliance, on the towering peak in the east of the giant green life star. In the palace, there were more than 200 figures, all of whom were Universe Knights and above. More than half of them were Universe Knights, more than 100 of them were Universe Masters, more than 40 of them were Universe Masters, and 24 of them were Universe Supreme Masters. Besides them, there were 3 powerful figures of the Desolation Era. At this moment, the senior members of the Remnant People Alliance were all puzzled, and without exception, they all looked at the black-robed desolate sovereign, who was sitting high in the palace. But no one made a sound, waiting for his instructions. Xiao. Xiao. The senior members of the alliance in the palace looked around. The black-robed desolate sovereign was not in a hurry to explain everything, nor did he immediately make a statement. Instead, he waved his hand and shot out 2 fine rays of light. The fine rays expanded in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into 2 canisters of liquid, which were suspended in the center of the palace. One of them was the purple crystal medicine, and the other was the 9-colored godly medicine. After doing all this, the black-robed desolate sovereign nodded with a faint smile and said, "You are all senior members of the Remnant People, and you have been refining flesh medicine all your life. Presumably, I don't need to explain what these 2 canisters of flesh medicine are, right?" This move made the senior members of the Remnant People in the palace stunned. Then, with a large number of gasps, everyone's expression changed instantly, and they exclaimed in horror, "Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4807. The actions of the black-robed Huang Zun stunned all the high-level members of the remnant people in the hall. Immediately afterward, with a series of gasps, everyone's expression changed instantly as they exclaimed in horror, "What? This aura! Hiss! Purple crystal treasure medicine? 9-color divine medicine? Oh my God, is this a dream? These are all legendary existences, how could they appear in front of us? And they are so huge, with a radius of 10 feet each. Old ancestor, where did you get such supreme resources?" I understand, the old ancestor has been in seclusion for 2 years, and he successfully broke through from rank 7 to peak rank 9. It must be because of these purple crystal treasure medicine and 9-color divine medicine. If there are these 2 supreme resources, it is not a problem to break through to peak rank 9 in 2 years, but how many purple crystal treasure medicine and 9-color divine medicine would it take? I'm afraid it would be at least 1,000 feet in radius, right? How is it possible? For such supreme resources, even a few dozen feet is a luxury, let alone 1,000 feet. I dare not dream of such extravagant hope. You are right, the cultivation resources consumed in my previous 2 years of seclusion are indeed all purple crystal treasure medicine and 9-color divine medicine. Moreover, I have consumed nearly 1,000 feet in radius. When the exclamations in the hall gradually subsided, everyone's expression was even more horrified as they gathered their gazes again. The black-robed Huang Zun, who was sitting at the top of the hall, nodded with a faint smile. After looking around at everyone, he continued, "However, the total amount of purple crystal treasure medicine and 9-color divine medicine in my hands is 100,000 feet in radius. I still have a lot." Hearing this, the high-level members of the remnant people in the hall immediately had their eyes lit up, and their breathing became rapid. Especially the 3 middle-stage powerful figures, their chests were undulating with excitement. With so many purple crystal treasure medicine and 9-color divine medicine, even if they could not break through to the desolate realm in just 2 years, it was completely no problem for them to break through to the late stage of the rank 7 realm. That was completely different from the current middle stage powerful figure. Concept. Seeing that the crowd was about to make a ruckus, the black-robed desolate sovereign frowned and waved his hand. "This sovereign has not finished speaking, do not make a ruckus." Then, seeing that everyone suppressed the excitement in their hearts and calmed down again, he continued, "However, with just these purple crystal elixirs and 9-color divine elixirs, at most, you can only quickly push your cultivation to the great perfection of the 9th order. As for breaking through to the supreme desolation realm, I believe you all know that it can't be achieved with just hard work and the accumulation of cultivation resources. It requires opportunity and luck. If there is no opportunity, it is common for people to be stagnant for tens of thousands of years. It's a problem." This was the key point, and it was also the issue that all the high-level members of the remnant people were most concerned about. At this moment, from the black-robed desolate supremacy's words, it seemed like he was going to reveal everything. Everyone immediately held their breaths as their eyes flashed with excitement. They had an intuition, an extremely strong intuition. The old ancestor in front of them was very likely to have found a secret method that could allow a great perfection of the 9th order to smoothly break through to the supreme desolation realm in a short period of time. If this was the case, it would be a shocking piece of news, and all the strong people in the starry sky would go crazy for it. You guessed right, before this sovereign went into seclusion, I already knew that I would be able to smoothly break through to the desolate sovereign realm in a short period of time. The reason for this is because this sovereign swallowed a level 29 desolate sovereign pill. Turning his head and looking at the crowd again, the black-robed desolate sovereign suddenly threw out a heavy bomb, shocking all the high-level members of the remnant people in the hall, and that level 29 desolate sovereign pill, as well as all the purple crystal elixirs and 9-color divine elixirs in this sovereign's hands. The divine elixirs were given by the master of the magic hall and the master of the sky river star, Yi Xian. At this point, the black-robed desolate sovereign no longer spoke. The entire hall fell into a complete silence. All the hundreds of high-level members of the remnant people all opened their mouths wide, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Their expressions were very interesting, but they were completely petrified, as if they had just been struck by lightning. At this very moment, everyone's mind was in a complete mess. They didn't understand what all this had to do with the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian. Even if these things were given to the black-robed desolate sovereign by the high-level members of the Beast Alliance, it would be easier for them to accept. Although the Beast Alliance and the remnant people were mortal enemies in the starry sky, the black-robed desolate sovereign had just been abused by the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, 2 years ago, and countless strong people in the starry sky had seen it. Thinking of this, everyone in the hall suddenly had a flash of inspiration. It seemed that when the 5 alliances joined forces to force the Magic Hall to abdicate, only the Remnant People Alliance was the first to leave. Then, the Beast Alliance wanted to leave, but some of their high-level members were killed on the spot. Yes, at that time, this sovereign and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, were just acting. Seeing that everyone seemed to be thinking of that, the black-robed desolate sovereign smiled faintly and said with a thick face, in fact, long before the abdication, this sovereign had represented the Remnant People Alliance to have a private meeting with the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian. And we reached an agreement. Since then, the Remnant People Alliance has been an ally of the Magic Hall and the Sky River Star region. Everyone is on the same side. Those purple crystal elixirs, 9-color divine elixirs, and the level 29 desolate sovereign elixir were all given to this sovereign by the 2 masters. Even the thunder strike that was used just now was secretly done by the Master of the Magic Hall. Of course, these top cultivation resources, including the level 29 desolate sovereign elixir, you will have the opportunity to have them in the future. At that time, this sovereign heard the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, mention that it seems that the perfect pill formula of the level 30 Heavenly Path elixir has been successfully deduced by him, and only needs to be refined. Although this sovereign doesn't know what it is, you should be able to guess some of it just by listening to its name. Perhaps soon, the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, will break through again and step into the Supreme Heavenly Path realm. Wow! When he said this, all the high-level members in the hall were shocked again, and exclamations sounded like a tide in an instant. Everyone, you have seen the situation in the Star region now. As for where the Remnant People Alliance should go, I think there is no need to say more. After the exclamations in the hall gradually stopped again, the black-robed desolate sovereign nodded again. With a solemn look on his face, he said in a deep voice, "This sovereign means to ally with the Magic Hall and the Sky River Star region." I don't know what you all think. A group of high-level members looked at each other with different expressions on their faces. They even fell into deep thought, but gradually, no one knew what was in their minds. Everyone's breath gradually became heavy. They looked up at the black-robed desolate sovereign, and the expression on their faces was excited. They were excited. The result was already indescribable. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website.